super not precious on Come to Where I'm From. We're the Bitches Brew of podcasts. Welcome, everybody. We got Ben Lee. We're in Ben Lee's home studio.
Are we on? Are we doing it? Is this it?
Yeah, I think we've probably been doing it.
All right.
But we were just talking about Captain Beefheart and Tom Waits. And yeah, because Tom Waits, he started out with like writing those like really just being more of just a beautiful singer-songwriter, and then he got all kind of wild.
I'm inspired by artists that get more artistic, experimental, and braver as they get older. I never really... It's funny, for someone who started as young as I did, I never bought into the narrative that like you do your best work at 21 and then you know, it's like, to me it was like a craft that I think if you're ready to take the journey of being an artist, it's a lifelong journey. Like I always said, I want to make my best stuff when I'm in my 70s. Yeah. And I'm still shooting for that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that me too. Like I feel like that. Yeah. And it's I feel like music's become less ageist as we've gotten older too. Like, you know, it was because we were talking about Gary Lucas. He's been on the podcast, and when he was working with Jeff Buckley in the 90s and stuff, and he got kind of pushed out of that scene, maybe due to being, you know, he was like older, but they had such a magical chemistry. Like he wrote those crazy riffs like on Mojo Pin and Grace. Really? Those are his guitar parts, which you just associate with Jeff Buckley, but it was him who wrote those. And then once he got pushed out of the frame, it didn't have the same. Like he struggled on his second record, Jeff did. Oh,
that's interesting.
Yeah, like they had a magical thing, but that's a whole other subject. But shout out to Gary Lucas.
But as far as it relates to age, I think one of the things about the splintering of the music industry is that you can bypass traditional media, which is still sort of youth and sex focused. And connect with different audiences, different ages, different identities, different cultures. And I think that really does provide artists to take play a long game a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, also, like these kind of, what do you call it? Formats or platforms you can develop, like podcasting and stuff like that, to where you can engage with people in different ways. Like then it was so limited. It was like, get a video on 120 minutes and then be on MTV, and then if you are, then you've made it, and if you're not, go fuck yourself, and after 30 you're done.
For sure. And
that's what it was then, you know. It was like if you didn't make it. But I remember, like, I got signed when I was 25. I thought, okay, I got 2 years to like make it, and then I'm done.
Full on,
like, like, you know.
I know, and I reckon in some ways I'm envious of artists who are starting now, because I think the infrastructure is more supportive of playing your own game and opting out of, in a way, like the mainstream competition in a certain way. Like there's is an easier way to build a sustainable lifestyle, I think, as an artist. Being weird. And I think then it was more like if I put out a record in the 90s, I'm competing with Jewel.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm sure you were in the same boat. And it's sort of like, you're like, oh my God, I'm forced to play a game and make decisions based on, and strategize based on that premise. That I may not even relate to that much.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there was like a limited lane, whereas now it's much more expansive. Yeah. I mean, you were saying some interesting stuff about how when artists are young, their vision is more palatable, is how I think you put it.
Just me and my wife last night were talking about, I think we started talking about Joni Mitchell and then about Miles Davis, and about how beautiful the idealism of the early 20s is. Like anyone can put on Blue, and that album is always going to contain a tenderness and a wisdom beyond her years, of course, right? But also indicative of her years, in that there's an innocence to it, and there's she's got that thing that I remember. I think I've maintained some of this, but like you're going through the worst hangover and you're more in touch with the romanticism about it rather than how bad you actually feel. Whereas as you get older, maybe it's your baggage, maybe it's you lose some of that idealism or romance. The wounds start to suck a little more. You know what I mean? It's a little less romantic. And people's art reflects that. Yeah. And I like that.
Yeah. Or you like hope isn't so unadulterated. You still have hope when you're older, but it's like measured with, all right, like there's a little like, I don't know. There's something, I know what you're saying. It's hard to articulate it.
Well, it's like the hope becomes, if I think about my own life, it's like I used to feel dazzled by so much stuff.
Right.
And now I'm much more discerning in terms of what impresses me.
Right.
But that which impresses me brings me to my knees.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's like a smaller window within which the magic of the universe can shine into your life.
Wow.
But the power that it's coming in with, the humility, you know what I mean? Because you have humility as you get older, and you're just like, whoa, the fact that record got made, I'm so grateful that opportunity existed within this space-time continuum. You know?
Yeah. Do you, like, I find I actively work on my enthusiasm. Like that is like, in fact, I think I'm like usually spending every day working on cultivating my state of mind and my enthusiasm much more so than I did back in the day, like I think, that you have that youthful exuberance more, but there's ways to like cultivate youthful exuberance, not in a midlife crisis-y kind of way, but in a just, breathing, it goes back to spirituality, like breathing oxygen, pranayama, breathing breath of fire type of stuff, or running, or, diet and exercise and all that stuff. Do you have like any kind of rituals that you do to like cultivate your state of mind or your perspective?
Where I'm at this moment in my life is that I reject all rituals.
That's interesting.
Personally, because I find them to be controlling of me, and I feel that they imprison me in different ways.
I like this.
So I say that as someone who's like married. I'm a responsible homeowner. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like an anarchist who's like burning down, churches in Norway. But I am
not yet.
No, but within,
it might get there.
No, but within the way I relate to my journey for intellectual freedom and for spiritual and emotional freedom, I look at the reason I like show business is I think it's like a good metaphor, and I heard the creator of Modern Family on a podcast, right? I knew nothing about this guy, but he said something that I really liked. He said, when people ask me for advice on how do I make it in this industry, I always say, making it in this industry, it's like chopping through a jungle with a machete and the path closes behind you once you go through, so no one can follow you.
That's so interesting.
And I think personal growth is a bit like that too.
Damn, I'm getting kind of chills with what you just said. I'm telling you honestly, like not,
but really, I think like there are all these people.
The whole closing behind you thing that's I think the thing that got me that thing, because
it's like Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
and everyone tries to, but this is something someone else said that I was like, yeah, man, that resonates with me, because I see all these like teachers and meditation teachers and yoga teachers who stand up and go, just do this every day and you'll feel peaceful, or just do that and eat this way and you'll be enlightened, or and think this way, chant this mantra. And sometimes I'm skeptical whether they've even done the thing that they're teaching. But even if they have, just because that worked for them does not mean it'll work for anyone else. So my journey as an artist and as an individual is I want to like be my own human being, and I want to find my own path to freedom. Yeah. That's how I'm thinking about it.
Right, but like you don't. So when you say you reject all, I'm like, let's talk more about that, because so you don't do anything like, oh, I'm going to run every day, or I'm going to do yoga, or regular this or that.
I do exercise. Like I like to play tennis.
Right.
I like to do Pilates. I'll do exercise for my body.
I like Pilates too. Yeah.
So I'll do it for my body.
Yeah.
But I'm not under any illusion that it has to do with enlightenment,
right,
or like granting me access to some realm of creativity. It's just like I look after my body because I want it to be healthy.
Yeah, I do it more just on the level of day, like in the moment of the day. Like when I wake up, like I could go, on social media and then like watch, like, I don't know, just do something that's not pushing me towards any kind of energetic like lightness or something. Or I can do something like put on a mantra like I use the Ho'oponopono mantra a lot. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. There's all these ones on YouTube that you can like put on your headphones and go on a run or something with that. And it's not like I don't think, oh, this is going to make me enlightened at all. It's more just, this is going to make my day killer because it's going to get my state of mind in a really good place. Than to like I like
it's
we
what
barely
works for you.
It's what works for me. Yeah,
and it probably evolves also. It probably will be like there'll be a year where you suddenly go, hey man, that mantra is not really doing it for me anymore.
Oh, exactly. No, I get bored. I get bored.
Playlist.
Yeah, for sure. No, I download tons of them, and and also I'm thinking, pretty soon it's going to be time to take the training wheels off. I feel like even the fact that I have a mantra in headphones is still training wheels level. Like really, I feel like is getting there just with not anything, like. But just I've been framing my days up like that, and it just helps me so much. But so it's just interesting.
Well, I think the thing is like, and my fear in talking about this is I don't want to come across as superior or someone with like another theory about, because I'm literally saying like I'm willing to risk spiritual chaos. I'm not convinced I'm on the right path. But I'm willing to take the risk because what I don't want, I look at it's like as an artist, right? The times where I've imitated and walked on someone else's path, ultimately I don't feel good looking back. So I would rather have my own successes and failures that I feel are mine. Rather than some kind of imitative experience. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to.
When did that change for you? What? Because did you have anything in the past?
Oh man, yeah. I'm
He's a seeker,
student.
man. He like
What were your practices?
So I went like super deep into Taoist qigong and like Taoist martial arts and stuff.
Wow.
And then I had this guru in India that was like a Hindu occult mother worship, divine mother, and I got married there. I was
right.
There
You
for
had
like
a Hindu
6,
wedding.
7 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Then I went really deep into basically like the ayahuasca shamanic, but also like Gnostic, Christian, Kabbalistic, occult, like all the occult stuff. You know
you've
what I
had
mean?
some Jesus periods too?
Man, yeah, but not even
Me too.
But not exclusively. More in terms of like the archetype, seeing its validity in my narrative.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Hinduism too. I like how it's all inclusive.
Yeah,
That's one thing about Hinduism. They like, it's like, hey, if Jesus is your path, stay on Jesus. Because it all goes to the same place. Like that's one. I love Hinduism as well for that reason.
Well, and also I just think kind of what I found increasingly was I was actually putting myself in prisons of my own making with each of these experiences. Like I might have a genuine at the beginning. Sometimes like, for instance, psychedelics are a really interesting one because you can have a very genuine, mystical, humbling, open experience. Right. But then how you interpret that could be given like all different kinds of frameworks.
And how you incorporate it. And plus, what spirits are you inviting in?
And whose interpretation are you using of that experience, right?
Well, exactly. Like DMT, I stopped trusting. Like, I don't know if you ever experienced that one. I mean, that one just, I don't know, it's just got too weird. It's this is too weird for me. Like, I mean, but, because I don't know what realms I'm dealing with. Like, I'm not that educated with it.
But that's healthy. See, I reckon the problem is, like, people start becoming convinced they know what's happening.
Right, I don't know what's happening.
For instance, ayahuasca, which is it's a DMT experience, but stretched out. Like, that experience, I've done that, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 50 times, right? Yeah. And if someone asks me now, what did you learn from that? I will honestly say, I do not know what that was. Right. Yet at the time it was happening, because I was involved in methods of interpretation, I would have told you I understood the experiences. Right. And I feel the same with art. Like music, I love. Cinema, like things like that. The number one experience I want to have is reminding me how little I know and how little I understand. But it's amazing how the ego wants to make these things into almost like status symbols
of
our understanding. You know?
Yeah.
I assumed with you, because you put art out and the ayahuasca
inspired by,
or it seems like, okay, that's who you are, and there's a memory of it in your future, which is the album that you made.
A memory of it in your future.
In your past, I mean.
That's a great phrase, though. I love that.
But then do you completely reject those albums? Or?
No. Okay, hang on. When I think of my music, and even like I think of phases I've gone through as a human being, if I put any of my music on, which I rarely do because I'm an artist, that's what artists do. We don't listen to our own
We don't
stuff.
listen to it. We're making the next thing, dude.
But
we're making the next masterpiece.
But when it comes on, regardless of the costume I was wearing, I hear me, my heart, my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, hey man, that was me. I was doing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, maybe I was into this chord or this type of lyric or that style.
Yeah.
But basically what I'm hearing is an expression of where I was in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important not to reject, even like, I've been making records for over 25 years, since I was 14.
Yeah.
So naturally there's a lot of embarrassing, quote unquote, material in that when I'm in the mood to beat myself up, it's not hard to find something to use as, artillery for that process. But I try and honor the effort that I've put in at various stages and be like, dude, man, I really did it. You know what I mean? Like other people are sitting there just searching the internet.
Dude,
I jumped in.
I love the fact that you made a record called Ayahuasca, Welcome to the Work. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And I still love psychedelics.
Do you ever microdose or anything like that? That's more my vibe. If I'm going to mess with psychedelics, it's going to be on a microdosing vibe.
But I'm a little bit like the sub-perceptual thing is I'm a little bit like, what's the point? Like I want perception of it.
I feel you. No, I
like a little bit more than micro.
I like that's what I just said at Dave Catching. I'm like a little over the top microdosing is what I call it. But
real microdosing is like an antidepressant. That's boring to me.
That is, No, I'm with you on that. That's my version of microdosing. Totally. But because I've done. Did you ever do Ibogaine?
Never did that. No,
I did that a couple times.
Did you use that to get off something? Was that because that's used a lot?
Honestly, I was using it to deal with addictive qualities in my life that were just like fucking me up still. Like, and I was really just trying to like almost kind of blast my brain, like almost like electroshock therapy, but in the psychedelic realm.
Did it work?
It worked for a time. It's really relatable to what you said about like, okay, how am I going to incorporate this into my life and all that? Like, like when you're motivated, like the thing is like psychedelics, I don't know, they're kind of like maybe sort of like, I look at like addiction as like this circular thing. It's just like you're going, and there's these moments of breaks where you can escape it, and
the next circle forms.
Well, if you get out, then you can be out. Like that's the whole like, if you're in AA, one drink breaks the circle, makes the circle come back again, and you're going down. And where it ends, it's up to it, not you. That's the powerlessness of addiction, But like, so you have these breaks, and I think psychedelics can give a break in the addiction cycle for you to escape, but then you have to do the work after that to keep out of that circle, if you know what I mean. And so it worked for a time, but ultimately it didn't work because I went back into addictions and stuff. But now I've like don't really like deal with addictions because I've like resolved a lot of traumatic bullshit in my life that that happened as a result of not psychedelic stuff. So I think psychedelics are a valuable tool, but I don't think they're the alpha and omega, And I think when you first start exploring it, there's a tendency to go like, oh my God, I found the answer, because it's so powerful, and it is God saying, hey, what's up? Kind of, so you're like, whoa, God just said, hey, what's up,
Look, I think a lot of what I've battled with in my life is my tendency towards the born again evangelism.
Yeah.
Whether it's with like a style of music.
Right.
Or a drug or a romance or like, I would always be that guy who'd be like, I found it!
But that's enthusiasm.
Yeah, but it's got a shadow.
Well, there you go. That's great. Yeah, it's true. And I relate to you in that because I have that same, definitely that same tendency, and I know that. But yeah, it's like when you sell, you, like kind of like I'm getting to the point now where I accept that about myself, and I actually think it's kind of enduring. Enduring. That's a weird Freudian slip. That's a cool Freudian slip. Endearing is what I meant to say, but also annoying. I see it as I see my own tendency of that as I can see how it's annoying, and I currently do it because I have been finding all these things like healing modalities and mantras and working incredibly hard in those realms. And then, sort of boldly sharing it. And people have been responding like it's helping them or this, that, and the other. And I'm not doing it in a way of like where I think I know the answer because I don't. But I'm just saying, here's what's helping me. It might help you too. So,
yeah, but that's calm. That's not really born again. Like born again evangelism is when you're like,
when you know the answer.
Everyone should do this,
right.
man. It's like this would help everyone, and that's what like I see the toll that's taken on my relationships.
Like what?
I think it's exhausting.
Yeah.
For people that love you.
Yeah.
Because it's like if you take that role in your community, whether it's your family, your friends, your fans, whatever, you take that role of being like a leadership role.
Right.
Being like, I'm going in this direction. Who wants to go?
Yeah.
And then you change course.
Yeah.
Because that always happens. Because it's totally unsustainable. Like, if you don't, you're a bigger lunatic. You know what I mean? Like, then you end up like Jonestown, where it's got like, it's a one-way path towards like obliteration,
to
essentially.
Like buying some Adidas.
Yeah. So you get off, and then like, you've still got the need for that experience. Mm-hmm. So you go take a 180 and go hardcore in another direction. And the people that love you go, okay, we'll go with you this direction. And then you do that enough times. And it's like, I can't tell you the amount of times I've had people I love say to me, I can't take this journey with you.
Right.
And I used to be resentful of that. And now I'm like, I actually think they're the sane ones. Mm-hmm. Because there are also journeys that like we should take on our own.
Yeah.
And not need to drag other people along with too,
Well, what you said about the showbiz thing, about the machete, and then the forest closes behind you too.
But that insight is very deep.
Yeah.
And I feel I could apply it to you almost, because you do take a lot of journeys.
Yeah.
And you sort of
reach
a point. No, he does take a lot of journeys, and whether it's Ho'oponopono or carnivore diet or being vegan, you do them. And he sets his path on them, and he goes. And sometimes people don't go along with him, and some people are in for the ride. But and you get to the point where, I don't know if you exhaust them or you get tired of them, and then you open up yourself. Okay, I'm going to take this path, and then you go on that path with the same intensity you did on the previous one.
Yeah.
Well,
I find it like I think it's one path though, and it's like to me it's
ongoing path.
It's an ongoing path, but it's like. You're just sharing your journey, and for people that want to tune into your journey that you're sharing, they can tune in. I don't think it's like I don't think of it as like you're telling people that they should some
people might know you're even on the journey,
Yeah.
But do you have a tendency, because I have a tendency to like when I would change directions to have this like burn the past kind of like rejection of the past.
Yeah, I don't feel like I have that necessarily.
Because that's the thing, I think like, that's the way I think I've hurt people.
That it's
because like if you have a collaborator, let's say, who you work really closely in a certain thing, and then you shift direction, and part of the way you gain the energetic momentum to the new direction is rejecting the past.
Yeah,
it can be read as a personal rejection, of people that took the journey with you to get to that point.
Yeah,
that might be different though for us.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm.
Your journey is more way of life, not changing, like not hurting people. It's more just what Joe is doing, I feel. But for you as a musician, when you change the path and you reject everything, you risk maybe losing fans. Does that ever come?
Yeah.
Does that ever come into your consideration?
Yeah. Well, part of like what I like reckon with is that there is a science. It's almost like an entrepreneurial science of maintaining a brand and maintaining credibility in certain circles, right? That I have had an aversion to. Like I remember when I toured with Dashboard Confessional, this is an interesting band, and I would say to Chris, I'd say, I really respect how you've taken your audience on these little incremental steps, and they've come with you, and the venues grow and grow, and the whole. It's like a great long-term strategy of how you protect this. But my impulse was always more kind of like radical and instantaneous. So this is an example. Like when I started my career, I was like a darling of like indie rock, right? Yeah. So that's like not even, wouldn't matter to young people now. But like there was a time when like NME, Dazed and Confused, The Face magazine, like these were like, big up if they put the stamp on you of like, this is a cool kid. Yeah, you know what I mean?
That was the thing.
It's a big deal,
it was
right?
a big deal, yeah.
And I see other artists who see who their core audience is and who their core fans are, and I don't want to use the word panda because I sort of respect it. Like they manage to
cultivate like a garden.
It. So I have this like, it's funny because like my punk rock essence is even anti-punk rock.
Right.
So like
punk rock.
Which is punk rock, but that does not endear you to certain aspects of a community that identify with a value system. So for instance, for me, there came a point in my career where I was like, yeah, I want to have Mandy Moore sing on this record. I think she's cool and got an interesting voice, and I like kind of what she stands for, this complexity of someone wrestling with pop culture and what it means. And I want to try all these things. To me, that was punk. Yeah. That's like why I got into it, to try things you weren't allowed to do.
Yeah, I think that's punk too.
Yeah, but then there is a lot of early supporters who are like, hey, that's a little too far for us. Like you're tarnishing some kind of purity that they projected onto me. So this is an example where
not everybody gets that being uncool is cool.
Yeah, not everyone gets it.
Not everybody gets that, and then they just see being uncool as just uncool.
Yeah, and I see like a lot of the bands that I loved growing up did a great job protecting their coolness.
Right.
Like Sonic Youth, the Beastie Boys, Pavement, you know,
they prioritized
it, keeping everyking cool.
Yeah.
You know, and I, in a way, I admire it.
I agree because but
I also couldn't do it.
I'm more like you too. I like to go against the grain.
I like to disrupt.
I'm a disruptor as well. But so how have you, I'm interested to like stay on this point about like when you shift gears and you burn the past or whatever, or like reject like the old thing, like how has that operated, or how have you done that? Like what does that look like?
Well, I mean, I can think career-wise, and I can think in my spiritual journey.
Yeah, can you give me an example of both?
Yeah, so like career-wise, I would say my second solo album I made when I was 18. It was called Something to Remember Me By. And it was like very folky. Like I was obsessed with like Loudon Wainwright and Bob Dylan. And it's interesting because at 18, you can't carry that very well.
Right.
It's like not very credible.
Well, Bob Dylan did.
Yeah, it's very rare.
But he's Bob Dylan.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
I'll rephrase that. I could not carry that well.
Yeah.
So
Van Morrison too.
Yeah, Van Morrison, Astral Weeks.
But mostly as people get older, it becomes a much more flattering idiom and flattering palette to use.
Yeah.
Folk and roots and things like
Acoustic.
that. Because you as an older person,
Adult,
you begin to have a connection to the past.
Yeah.
Which when you're young, a connection to the past, you have to be a great actor.
Right.
Like Bob Dylan was such a great actor.
Really.
That he could create an illusion of a connection to a past that he never was around to experience.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, so then when I made, I felt the sting of people not connecting with that. Although now, obviously, as careers go on, you meet people who are like, that record changed my life.
Right.
I loved it.
Yeah, so that's really nice. But so the next record I made was this record, Breathing Tornadoes, which was my biggest record at the time.
Yeah.
And that was at
we
a time.
We listened to that last night.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's really good.
So that occurred at a time when indie rock was, for all intents and purposes, it was dead. Bjork was the biggest thing in the world, and electric guitars were like blasphemous.
Yeah.
Like you were seen as like completely archaic to not have a drum loop.
Yeah.
And to have electric guitars on things and stuff.
What year was that?
Like 99,
Yeah.
something like that, right? So in some ways, I felt like I justified some of those shifts almost in like a Bowie-esque thing in my mind of like, oh, you put on a new character, it's a new persona. But really, I think partly what it was there was a hurt to do with the rejection of an artistic expression.
Yeah.
And so I started running in a different direction.
Okay.
Right? And so there are fans and there are collaborators that felt an authenticity at whatever level with that moment of artistic expression, that to have that outright rejected, it's almost like the fan feels, oh, I guess there's no room for me now. Right? So that's...
like I would just interpret that as like, because I think a lot, like I would always frame every record I made as reacting against the one I made before, but never considered that negative at all. Like always considered that like just fuel. Like I'm reacting against the record I previously made, but not rejecting the record I previously made. It's just a launching pad.
Well,
like,
you might have been healthier than me in that aspect.
I keep flipping back and forth. I still do that. Like, but I consider it healthy and not like rejection. Like, it's like what you said previously about like when you look at old work, how you like, that's what I was going through at that time.
But I think there's a difference between reacting against the record and reacting against people's reaction to a record.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think when you are reacting to people's reaction to you, you're actually like not fully in your artistry.
Okay.
You're kind of like, I'll show them. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty confident that I'm reacting against the record because it's like I like to try different things. Like one record I'm producing everything, I'm playing everything, I've written everything. Then it's like I'm mixing everything. Then it's like, can somebody else do everything?
See, I'm there now. Now that's where I am. But in the past, that journey was like, I always felt like, oh, the next one they're gonna understand.
Right.
This one I'll show them they'll understand.
Well, so it's not like I don't have those hurt feelings too when it doesn't like blow up, but it's just like, or get accepted or whatever. I understand that too. It's not like I'm not above that shit.
Yeah. So I think that does go away as you get older, and you take a journey that's more about your expression.
Yeah, or just like like you're just into the next thing you're doing, and it's like, oh, the past is the past, so it's not really affect. So how did that operate in the spiritual?
Yeah,
level,
so in my
then?
spiritual life, so I had this guru in India that I was like super into, and it's interesting.
Do you want to name him or
not really? Not really, because I don't want to publicize. I'm so like,
totally.
I really don't believe in gurus, and I don't even want people to go down a rabbit hole. I mean, it's pretty easy.
Don't follow leaders, follow parking leaders.
Yeah, exactly. If you Google, you can find anything out. But
I think we're all gurus. It's like no big deal.
Okay.
It's a slippery slope.
What I sort of found was that there is a malevolent impulse in spiritual teachers. I began to feel there's a dark desire to control in people that present themselves as helping. And it's quite subtle. Like, it's literally like, this is what it's interesting in Judaism. One of the things I like is they say you have to always give charity anonymously.
Judaism.
Yeah. But one of the things I like is,
that was a joke.
Yeah. No, but it's a good principle. They said always give charity anonymously.
Right.
Because there is an impulse to take credit and to raise your social status through the act of giving.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of spiritual teachers do that, where they might even start off with the best intentions.
Yeah.
But before they know it, what they're really doing is like, it's almost like they're vampires.
Well, power corrupts.
And they are draining energy by being loved and by being admired. And it's like it's almost like this machine of devotees and disciples around teachers are like feeding the ego and feeding the dreams of this teacher. And it's not about anyone getting free anymore.
But
that's religion.
I agree.
But there's also a lot of people who are lost, and if you've done a lot of work on getting yourself not lost, to be able to also share those healing modalities, or to like put out that positivity, how is that a bad thing? Or are you meant to stay silent about it because like then what?
Well, I think
you know what I mean.
I think
because it's like
ultimately,
it brings back the Rush lyric. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Yeah,
you know. What
Look,
I mean?
and in a sense, this is the predicament of human experience.
Yeah.
But I think let's just say as artists, we have the ability to demonstrate our state of mind and our state of being through the art we make.
Yeah.
So like.
But what's art? Like, because to me, Instagram is art. Like, everything is art. Your whole, like, your life is art.
But I would say the highest forms of art are the least literal. So, like,
that's interesting.
The more, like, I was actually, me and my friend Brad Wood, he's a producer I worked with a lot of times. We were, I posted on Instagram a Kubrick quote last night about him. Kubrick was saying something like, if you want to make a point, the least effective and least enjoyable way to do it is directly. The best way to do it is to guide the viewer or the listener to discover it for themselves,
right?
Not to tell them something, right?
Yeah.
So I see art as in like, the lowest level of it is the confessional, literal coffee house, like someone who gets up with their diary and wants to read you all the horrible things that have happened to them,
right? Because
they, at some level, think it's art because I'm reading it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The highest level is telling a story, through total myth and fiction, that says more about you than you would have ever been able to say by being literal, right?
That's great.
So like Oscar Wilde said, give a man a mask, he'll show you the truth. Right?
What is it?
Oscar Wilde said, give a man a mask, he'll show you the truth.
Oh, right. That came up in the Bob Dylan documentary that came up. And we also have masks on our podcast in New York. But yeah, so we're that same thing.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
And I think you would find, I was talking about a few songwriters who, I don't know if anyone is interesting enough to really just write literal truths about their life.
Well, what about John Lennon? Because he wrote those literal truths in such an effective way too. Like his, you know what I mean? He's a good example of somebody who went like down the center.
I don't know. I feel like John Lennon was actually telling
like
the
Plastic
story.
Ono Band.
It's the story of a myth. The story he presents of him and Yoko is not the whole story.
Right, no doubt.
It's the story he wants
doubt.
to tell in a fairy tale to teach a lesson about life.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
He never wrote about going off with the secretary.
The mother, that's true. But mother and all that kind of stuff, that's like heavy duty, like really directly personal stuff, and like Plastic Ono Band.
It is.
But like, and of course, you could also say, okay, that's mythological, but then at that point it becomes a wash. Then at that point, anytime you like relay a story about your life, you could also call it mythological, no matter how directly it is, because on some level, the retelling of any part of your life becomes mythological.
But that I think that the question there becomes the level of craftsmanship,
right?
Because I think there is a difference between someone blogging about how girls have rejected them and how rageful they are on a website,
right? And
someone that is actually able to take feelings of isolation and elevate them into something that
isolation,
or that we connect with.
Yeah,
we don't feel that we're indulging the person doing the writing.
Yeah, we
actually feel like there's a generosity in their telling of it. Yeah. So look, John Lennon was a writer at a level that he could elevate everyday experiences, and even by using them by name, like with his wife, there are so few relationships that could withstand representation at that mythological level of a song like Oh Yoko.
Or Jealous Guy.
Yeah, but he was able to do that.
Yeah. So what happened with the Guru? So you were.
So my point was with the Guru. I had a realization within a series of psychedelic experiences that I had bound myself in a way. I'd reduced options. Right. I'd reduced the ability to think for myself.
Yeah.
I had given away power.
Right.
I'd given away autonomy.
What do you mean giving away autonomy? What's autonomy?
Autonomy, the power to make decisions for yourself.
Okay,
free
right.
Will. Free will.
Yeah, free will.
Who's in charge?
Right. I got you.
I'd made someone else in charge.
Right.
So I had this realization, right? And I realized I had to make a break. It was literally like realizing you're in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And there's no, when you're, when you're in a truly abusive dynamic, there's no going to like therapy with the person to figure it out. It's
Right.
like you got to get the hell out of there, right?
That's really true.
So I realized I was in that kind of dynamic. I got out of it, and I'd brought a lot of people to that guru. And they felt a massive. It was incredibly provocative.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because of my evangelical tendencies, I'd sort of turned people on to this process that I now realized was not in integrity. And so
For you though, you don't.
Yes.
You think for anybody probably.
I think,
but you might be going.
He had the insight.
But
I
he might be
think
going
there's-
evangelical the other way in rejection too,
But
because there's a tendency then to like
That's true.
always be.
No.
Yeah.
That's true. But I also think there is actual corruption in the world. Like,
Oh,
like if
definitely.
you look at like the political landscape now, like it's not just corruption in the eye of the beholder. There's actually a type of person who is in power that is not our highest, what we can aspire to at the highest level as humans. That's what I saw in spiritual teachers. That like some of these guys were ultimately not the kind of people that you want giving you direction on how to be. This is a basic example, right? I believe that if there is freedom, if there is truth, if there is liberation of any kind, we are all equal in the process of trying to reach that. Right?
Yeah.
I don't believe in intermediaries. I don't believe in a hierarchy.
Yeah.
But there are the actual entire guru dynamic is based on the concept of an intermediary.
Yeah.
Where they say that by projecting onto this person, you get the chance to get closer to the infinite.
Yeah.
And I actually think when I get down to real common sense, right? I think that I do not want... You're going to end up becoming like the things you admire. We know this as musicians.
Yeah.
The kind of heroes that you grew up admiring as a teenager, you're going to get the same kind of problems as them.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like really, like if you look at, like if you grew up like reading about like your hero's Iggy Pop, odds are you're going to go through a shamanic self-destructive phase.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's just like you cultivate energies and archetypes and you're going to take those journeys.
Yeah.
And what I realized with these teachers is, okay, so in a way, here is my role model of someone telling me this is how you take the path. And what I see is a human being putting themselves above other human beings.
Right.
So ultimately, I'm cultivating an attitude in myself of superiority, of hierarchy, of elitism.
Yeah.
Things that I actually, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe to
I don't
be
believe-
part of.
I don't believe in that stuff either.
Exactly.
But I also like I like gurus with a grain of sand, you know. And I like people that make YouTube videos that like, you know, these like kids making YouTube videos about the benefits of NoFap and that kind of stuff. I love that type of shit, you know, like, and it inspires me. And it's not like, you know, when I'm watching those things, I'm thinking that person is above me. I'm just thinking like that person is.
You're doing it remotely.
That person has found something and I'm getting something out of it. And then like, to me, it's like a circular. Then I can also make a video on Instagram saying something that might inspire other people.
Yeah, but that's
not,
different.
Not that I'm thinking like, oh, I'm better than anyone. I don't. It's more just like, oh, I found this. This is helping me.
Yeah, but that's different. That's
Yeah.
a really different thing. Like
So
what
you
we're
think that's
talking
more
about.
positive?
Well,
Like,
it's just sort of like it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Like the
You're talking about-
nature of a guru really
Right.
is not someone just putting things on the internet for whoever wants it.
Right.
The nature of a guru is meant to be traditionally someone leading you from the darkness to the light.
Yeah.
And that is what I have come to believe
It's
is
bullshit.
not possible.
Right.
You know?
I do follow some gurus. I'm sorry to cut
There's
you
a
off.
very thin line between a cult
Yeah.
and what you just described.
That is a cult.
Exactly.
It's not that thin a line. It's well within that line.
It's well within that
Yeah.
line. But just as your experience with the guru, your wife was on that same journey.
Yeah, but she was like always like a bit skeptical.
So did-
like my wife
What was the? Oh, because you don't want to name the
Yeah,
guru.
no,
Because
we
I'm
got
sure I don't.
married.
But,
Yeah.
but how
Oh,
did
that's
you,
where you got married with that.
As
I
a
see.
couple, did you both exit the?
Oh,
did you
that's
have
a
to
great
well, I would
convince her?
say like I what I put my wife
Who exited
through,
first?
Oh no, just it was me. I drag everyone in, and I was
You
like, "Oh my
dragged
god,
her.
guys, come on!" Yeah, no, she was.
You're like, come on, this is bullshit.
She was
y'all.
always like, when I told her that I'd had the realization,
She was like,
she
"Thank
was
God."
relieved.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
like-
because she was honestly like,
Thank God I didn't
what
know how
I
to tell you.
put my wife through. This is where we started the conversation,
Right.
In terms of being this type of person,
Uh-huh.
what I have put my wife through and what
Okay.
she has stood by me through
Yeah.
is unbelievable. And that's why, if anything, if I like believe in anything, it's like my marriage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Well, that goes back to Oh Yoko, but it's Ione.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's
I
back to
believe-
Lennon.
I believe
Because
in
I
me,
believe in me.
Yoko and me.
Yoko and me.
That is the thing that has
It's
Goes
amazing.
back to that.
Goes,
honestly, my marriage
Yeah.
has made me a better person
Yeah.
than any of these so-called gurus and teachers
Yeah.
who are telling me they were going to help me be a better person.
yeah, that's amazing.
You didn't realize it when you were going with the gurus.
No, well, that's like you, and that's why I'm so grateful that my marriage survived that.
Right.
So that we can now be in this period. Now it's been several years,
Mm-hmm.
but we can be in this period of like our morality is our own.
Right.
It's not imposed on us by religion. It's not imposed on us
Right.
by doctrine. It's we are artists, and
Yeah.
really, that's like what I say. Like, you know, because Goldie's, my daughter's, has some friends that are like involved in the church of this kind or that kind because their families like that, and
Mm-hmm.
she sometimes asks like, "Oh, what do they do?" I was like, "It's like what we do as artists.
Right.
We're just trying to figure out who we are and like honor it and live by the truth." It's like, but this is, when I look back at my life so far, I'm only 40, but the true through line has been music and artistic expression.
Yeah.
Like, I think these spiritual trends that I went through actually took me away from my real spiritual path,
Right.
which was discovery through music and expression. And
That's beautiful.
Like, that's who I am. And that I don't need to evangelize it. I have 25 years of not being able to quit it.
Yeah.
Even at times when I wanted to.
Right.
Because like, it's so natural to me and it's
Yeah.
it's a good fit, you know?
Yeah, you kind of almost take it for granted because it is so effortless in a way.
You can't think this can't be it.
You think, oh, I got to go to like some faraway place and hang
It's
out with a
gotta
dude
be
in a
Eastern.
robe. Yeah.
It's got to be using and prayer. Prayer is really similar.
Yeah.
Because I don't conventionally pray.
Yeah.
But I was always intrigued with why is praying in another language more charismatic than praying in your own language? Like, why does it feel sort of sexier
Yeah.
to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to say like a chant. There's this like why can't it just be like just colloquial?
Well, my favorite is "I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you," which
Yeah.
is just has the power of like releasing negative programming and letting and taking full responsibility for everything in your field of consciousness
Yeah.
and living from inspiration rather than from memory. And that is like colloquial. How do you say that word?
Yeah,
As it
colloquial, yeah,
gets.
yeah. Well,
you
that's
know?
and,
Like-
and you know what, like punk rock. I was talking to my friend about this yesterday, because for a long time, like in the spiritual world, like everything's like positive. You have to be positive, right? You have to, and I've always kind of wondered, like, punk rock.
yeah.
What is punk rock? Because there's something in it.
Yeah.
It's not a fantasy.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize for myself
Yeah.
the power of negativity.
Yeah.
Because everything has poles to it, right?
Uh-huh.
And at a moment where you need to break away from hypocrisy and abuse, you need negativity.
Bullshit. Yeah.
You need to say, that's a lie.
Yeah,
I'm not standing for
Well,
that.
anger is a great protector. Anger is high up there in an energetic. Like, have you ever read this book called Power versus Force?
Yeah.
I haven't gotten all the way through it,
Yeah.
but like, there's like.
But I like the cover. Let me just, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, because it's just
Yeah.
black and white. Yeah. But yeah, no. I've gotten partial way through,
Yeah,
but it talks about how like anger is like kind of like a higher energetic pull than sort of depression or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I just sort of have realized that there's a tendency, I think, especially we're probably living in the most permissive time that's ever existed in the Western world.
What does
right?
that mean?
Meaning, you're free to live the lifestyle and we tolerate differences. I mean, obviously
I
there's
see.
a long way to go, but
Yeah.
we basically are at a very liberal time.
Yeah.
But I think the shadow of that is not pointing out hypocrisy and corruption.
Right.
That like the tendency to go with it is to go, oh, so look at these gurus and go, yeah, but everyone has their own path.
Yeah.
And I feel the tendency to say, actually, no.
Right.
I think there's corruption there.
Right.
I don't think that works.
Yeah.
I think you're being sold snake oil.
Yeah.
Because I drank it for a number of years and I didn't get better.
But
so I don't think it does. I don't think it works.
But I think you got to be careful about becoming evangelical. How do you say that word? Evangelical the other way, because I think the guru dynamic can work for people, and I do think.
But who? I haven't met anyone that it's really worked for.
Because I definitely like. Personally speaking, when I was going through, and this is a completely different aspect, but I was going through a lot of trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder from various things, and I found this guru on the internet, and I never met him in real life, but a couple different ones actually that I have followed just on the internet, and just they wouldn't know except for maybe like on some spiritual level. But they definitely helped me get from point A to point B. And then, I don't really check them out that much anymore. Every once in a while I check in and I'm like, hey, what's up, brother? But that's my own little personal thing. And it's not like I've given up or pulled anybody else into it.
But I think that's different.
I made a comedic character called the Helium Guru based on one of them, I think
that's a different thing.
No, and I know that's different. But what I'm saying is, to blanket statement all gurus are full of shit or that is a corruptive power dynamic, I think you got to be careful the other way, because I think for many people that guru dynamic can be beneficial. There's a reason why it has occurred, and I don't believe all gurus are power hungry like charlatans. I'm sure many are. I get that completely, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and humans are humans, and I think gurus are humans, so they have the tendency to fuck up and whatever, and it's a dangerous dynamic. But I definitely think people can there's spiritual teachers, there's spiritual healers, and they can help other people.
But I think I think you can differentiate. Oh, sorry.
And God agrees with me.
I think you can. I think
or
you can
disagrees. I don't know.
I think you can differentiate between.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the content being shared by the guru.
Yeah.
Like a guru can tell you the truth.
Right.
I'm talking about someone who instills a working dynamic in their life with their followers, using that intelligence and truth, because any guru who's worth their salt is telling you the truth.
Yeah, what about Osho? Did you see that thing? That documentary?
That's same deal.
That's a good example.
but
that's a good example.
If any of them are good, the things they're saying are going to be valuable.
Right.
Because that's...
Scientology even. Scientology is based on, when you a lot of it's, sound advice, you could say, on certain aspects.
But I maintain that... I maintain that it is not... destructive, because I talk, a lot of people share your view about this, because I'm very staunch about this. About there is value in gurus, and
I'm not saying across the board. I'm saying
no, but there can be.
There can be.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's possible,
and I that's something I disagree. We disagree about that.
Yeah,
and I encounter this a lot, but I can't deny what my heart says, which is that content can be shared without an interpersonal power dynamic.
Well, yeah. I think I get it when I'm just taking it online. But in a way, if you're taking info from somebody else, there's, I guess, a power dynamic to some degree.
That's just like being a fan.
Okay, well then I'm into it on that level.
Yeah.
I'm not into it on going and bowing at the feet of, necessarily. Yeah. I mean, but if somebody feels like they're getting something from that, I'm not really judging it, but I see what you're saying. It sort of wreaked havoc on your own
and
life.
I think it's an abusive, it's like looking at the Catholic Church and going inherently that structure, I'm not sure that structure can be rescued. That there is corruption so deeply embedded within that power structure that when I look at that, I go, that thing basically has to fall in order to rescue the people that are still kind of enslaved in abuse, basically.
Didn't Jesus go into the churches and start turning everything over and stuff?
It sort of has, and that's kind of how I feel about these guru structures. It's not to say there isn't intelligence in the information that teachers are passing on to students, but this old model of having a person who is seen as like the one who knows.
Yeah.
And the class as
I
the one
agree
who
with
doesn't
that.
know. I just don't think it's real.
I feel like that's old-fashioned.
It is
almost.
old-fashioned.
Like there's so many gurus. That's, I guess, what I'm sort of saying too. Like for me, I'm picking up so much spiritual or even lifestyle information across the board. Like, but like I said, like even like, you know, even like there's this one kid, I think his name is Gabe, who talks about NoFab. He's like in his 20s. He's one of my favorite spiritual teachers on the YouTube. You know, like, and he's just a trip. He's just funny, but it's like, I'm inspired by him, but he's not like a guru to, like, you know what I mean? Like, but there's like, I feel like people shine guru-ish light in various ways, and it's not like, the follower thing, I think, is dying down because of the information age. You know?
I hope so, but if you watch this NXIVM thing that's just played out, did you
No, I don't know. What is that? What is that?
It's a cult that was in Albany that I actually had 2 friends who got out of it and have been part of the case in prosecuting.
Yeah.
This story, and like people saw it in Wild Wild Country. Like, there's a reason that documentary had
that was
the appeal
amazing.
Because
fuck's sake.
This story is as old as time. The story of the dream, the idealistic dreams, the
like
leader
hippie
and the
vibe.
corruption.
Yeah.
It happens over and over.
Yeah, I guess it's a game people like to play.
But what you're describing is more of somebody who goes and spends time with the guru personally.
Yeah.
And is taught like a way of life.
That's true.
Which is exactly a cult.
And someone who surrenders.
it just goes, eventually it goes dark. And you're so deep into it, you don't have the consciousness to realize what's going on.
Yes. So okay, I think this is good because we're clarifying these ideas. I think
it's not watching gurus on YouTube.
What I'm talking about is like, unless
That's just a fan. You're a fan.
I'm a fan.
Like an artist.
When you meet a real guru,
I don't think I ever have.
When you meet one, what they tell you explicitly and implicitly is give up everything.
Yeah, fuck that.
And do what I say, and you will reach the truth.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about advice columnists in Goop. You know what I mean?
Did you go to an ashram?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's go into an ashram.
Yeah.
In India.
Okay, so
It's
how
going in?
It's going.
You know what I
went
mean?
in
It's
the
like,
deep
I
end.
did. I've been in multiple times.
Okay. And
this
how
is-
long did you stay there?
So with I would say.
I'm glad we clarified.
Yeah, it's good to clarify. I know. See, because you're speaking from your lens of someone collaging and
I'm collaging.
tasting all kinds of
for
stuff.
sure.
I'm talking about.
I know what he's talking
Dude,
about.
I'm one of those people who, like, if I had heard Jesus back then say, you can't follow me and your parents, I would have been like, see your mum, see your dad.
Right.
I'm going that way.
Yeah.
Because I just have that 110% thing that has its strengths, but also has its darkness. You know?
And what do you think pushes you in that direction? What's the wound in you that makes you go for things on that level?
What I've come to realize is that it's terror of freedom and terror of power, which are kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
That spiritual paths do something.
You said terror, not even fear. You said terror of freedom and terror of. What do you mean by that?
So what I kind of found about the spiritual search, right, is it places your freedom just out of your touch, just out of your grasp. So it's a goal that you can move towards.
That somebody else has already.
Or something you'll get after the next course.
Okay.
Or something you'll get after you can do this for 20 minutes twice a day, or do whatever it is.
Right.
It creates a syllabus that once you
What's
complete
a syllabus?
Well, look at like the Scientology is a classic one because you have to go through this level and
the
that
syllabus.
level.
Yeah,
and then you look at
studies.
We've heard this so many times. People that get to the final end of the Scientology and get the big secret and are like,
that
what?
it's alien invasion.
Because the power of Scientology is not the secret at the end. It's the luring you towards the secret at the end, right?
Yeah.
So freedom, and it's all just out of range.
Yeah.
And what that does is it puts you under the illusion that you're not free now.
Right.
So it imprisons you in that way. And as a result, you're totally disempowered because freedom is power. Like creatively.
Yeah.
When
So why
why
do you have a terror about freedom and your own power? Why are you afraid of those things?
Well, I could actually say at the moment I'm least afraid
you
I've
don't
ever
see,
been.
I
Yeah,
get
I'm
that.
speaking
You're speaking
very
of the past more. I feel like,
but I have to be honest. I have to be honest about this dynamic in my consciousness because it was dominant for so much of my life.
Yeah.
That it's like that's like an addiction. It's like if I were to deny that I have the ability to go there, that would be dangerous for me. You know what I mean?
Reiterate that.
Like my ability to be sold that bill of goods, I'm gullible in a sense, right? Yeah. So my ability to be sold that,
you want to give over your responsibility for yourself,
and to basically a parent comes and goes, "Hey, we've got the answers. Just relax."
But what makes you afraid of your freedom and your power?
Well, I would say what did make me afraid.
Or what did make you afraid of it?
Let me reframe it. My experience now in my life is extremely dynamic, right?
Yeah.
So my experience of making music or of making love or of walking outside is volatile. It's like I'm feeling this, and now I go, oh, no wonder I was scared.
Right.
I get it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not scared.
AA, if you want to find out why you drank, stop drinking.
Right. So like I'm now in a life with no ritual, with no certainty, where I don't know what happens after you die.
Yeah.
When I don't have answers to any of it. And it's intense, man. And I'm making work that I don't know if there's an audience for it.
Right.
And I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not trying to control it.
Yeah.
And there's a logical side that goes, oh, of course I sought the security of ultimately like convention and structure and religion.
Yeah.
Because freedom is, you got to be a man.
Yeah.
You got to be a woman. You got to stand there and go, I'm going to withstand the winds and the chaos and life. You know what I mean? It's like learning how to, this is another thing I like about psychedelics, that they teach you how to sit still or stand still through the unimaginable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I see maturity.
You don't have a choice. You're strapped in for the ride.
It's like dying. You know, that's why I liked learning about, I did like hospice training, you know, about how to like death midwifery and all that. Because
how'd you do that?
It was just something I studied, and I volunteered in hospice. And like,
really?
Yeah.
When did you do that?
It came out of my interest in psychedelics, probably about 10 years ago, around the ayahuasca album, that I was supporting people through psychedelic experiences. And I realized that what was so interesting about it is when someone's in a deep psychedelic state, you actually can't help them.
Right.
Because they are facing the terror of their own unconscious.
Yeah.
But you can be there. And in the most simple ways, be a support for whatever process they're undergoing.
Right.
And what I realized is like, oh, this is what
That's beautiful.
Death is. Let me close that door just because of the sound of the garden.
I think it's probably okay.
Really? You think it's okay? Okay. So so I kind of realized that I was interested in, and to bring this into music, I had some experience of playing music for the dying and also music during visitations for bodies.
Wow.
So like you would have someone would die.
Hold on. Visitations for
like
bodies.
The family would come in. There'd be a time.
I see. Okay.
There'd be a time where after the person dies,
yeah.
maybe some people would keep the body there for 3 days. And one of the nice things would be having music in the room as people come and go.
Yeah.
And the idea that you're going to be able to manipulate that experience at all is absurd.
Yeah.
Because you have someone coming in, there's a loved one or a loved acquaintance, like lying there, and they're witnessing their body, and the person's having a huge experience. What role can music play in that? It can provide a little comfort and courage while whatever happens, happens.
Right.
And that, if I were to say, like, what do I want my music to do? It's that.
Right.
I want my music to give a little comfort and courage while whatever happens, happens.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And that's what I learned by doing all the hospice stuff and death midwifery. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So when you left the cult,
yeah.
And then you said you had some backlash. Like, what about the people that stayed in the cult? Did you ever mend those relationships, or what were those kind of conversations like, or how did that end up resolving?
There's been some. There's some that were lost. One of the things about kind of spotting corruption,
right,
is that I do believe you have a duty not to evangelize about it, but to be honest. Yeah. I did not reach out to anybody who is in that and say, I've got to tell you what I'm going through. But if someone asked me, I would always be honest. I'd always say, this isn't what I thought.
Right.
I don't believe the thing I'm looking for is here.
Right.
I don't believe that person can help me get it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting as far away as possible. And there are certain people for whom that resonated. There are other people for whom they were like, I'm never talking to this guy again.
Why? Because they were so far down the rabbit hole at that point. Because to me, that seems like a real, like life is a journey. Like, you know, of course we learn different things and, you know, we change and evolve what we think are, you know, the way forward, and we could tell each other and help each other with that. But like at a certain point, like, yeah, like why wouldn't they understand that? Like, okay, actually, this is kind of freaking me out now.
Do you know what the problem
I'm
with you
sorry.
is? The problem with you is you are not the kind of guy that would actually join a cult.
No.
So you don't understand the mind frame. The mind frame is not one of intellectual openness.
Right.
The mind frame is...
Maybe we should.
Yeah, I'm going to close it.
Yeah, my bad.
And you're about to start taking apart this.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not coming from open-mindedness.
Yeah, when someone is
Or
part
logic
of
or
a
reason.
very small tribe,
Right.
they will do anything often in order to preserve the illusion that the world as they know it is all there is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like Platonic
Well,
essays about this idea. You know what I mean? It's
and NPD family of origin work exactly that way. They're tiny cults, actually. And if and the scapegoat sometimes discovers that, hey, maybe we're not healthy here, and then that's when the scapegoat usually gets ostracized from the family of origin, because they're the first person that said, hey, there's a problem here. Are we going to look at this? And then all of a sudden it's like, who are you?
well, that's the thing. I think
That's what happens. I
think this is where we actually connect.
Yeah.
In this, I think some of the details are murkier, but I think your experience with that family stuff and my
Yeah.
experience with these spiritual organizations
Yeah.
is very similar. In
Yeah.
that, like, you can't deny it once you've realized.
Once you wake up, it's like, yeah,
you're
that's
like,
true.
dude, this
There
is not what it
That's
appeared.
the connection then, because
Yeah.
that's so true, dude. And I start waking up and I was like, hey, excuse me, hello, this is, and then it was like, wait, who are you?
Exactly.
And it's like, and it's like, wait, what? I thought wait, who are you? Excuse me, what?
Did
it's
you
like,
express any of that to the actual guru? Like confront him?
No. And there's a reason for that.
but so
Yeah.
okay, so yeah, so you got that. So it was like, who are you? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So what you realize is that, like, once you've seen
you can't
real
unsee.
a real abuse of power,
Yeah.
you can't take a liberal attitude to it of
No.
like, hey, whatever works, this is working for everyone. You have to be like, this isn't healthy.
Okay,
like,
you're.
I'm just not going to be part of
I
it, and I'm
fully
not going to
fucking
endorse
relate
it.
to
Yeah,
this now.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
that you've framed it in the way that,
well, you
like,
framed it that way, actually.
okay, well, now that
Yeah,
we've,
yeah.
I completely fucking
Yeah,
get it,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
I like that now. I'm like, okay, I'm on board,
Yeah.
dude. 100.
And do you know what's funny?
4,000,000%, because it's like, and that's when your anger becomes a great resource,
Yes.
a great protector, and that's when you should not be like, hey, man, it's all good, it's all
That's right. And
fully with
do
you on this.
So, and you know
now,
what's
dude.
you know what's so interesting?
Like, it's
Because I've watched some of your YouTube, Instagram videos
Yeah.
about and stuff, and I was kind of like going like, I've been thinking about it a little bit and knowing we were going to talk. I was going like, I wonder how that applies to me, and I didn't know because I actually feel like more of the abuser in the type of dynamic you're talking about within families.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm the one who's dragged my family through my own narcissism.
Yeah.
Right. So I was kind of wondering, is that part of the lesson? But
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that we would identify actually as being
It's
having
a
had
cult.
similar experience in cults.
NPD families of origin operate exactly like cults,
Yeah.
and you can never be it can never be an equal environment.
Yes.
And as soon as you want just basic human rights, basic equality, it's like,
There's one oppressor at the
well,
top of the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, and it's like, or maybe two or whatever.
whatever,
Yeah,
yeah.
like they work in kismet sometimes, but like, it's interesting.
I'll share.
that's
Going back
super
to your question
interesting.
about did you ever confront
them, or you just
leaders? I'll tell you why not.
Irish goodbye.
And I'm not
Yeah.
sure if this is similar for you. I'm not sure. My sense is that there are people who go so far down a certain road that I don't want to be like dark about it. I don't want to say there's no turning back, but I think there's a reason why
there is no turning back.
For instance, like Faust, like the deal with the devil, right? There are deals that we can make for certain types of power in the world that certain people make. Like, for instance, like, okay, let's take Harvey Weinstein as an example. I don't think there's reasoning with Harvey Weinstein.
Right.
I think the guy has gone so far down a certain road that you would be wasting your energy thinking you're going to be the one who's going to get him to see the light, or Donald Trump. You know what? These are people that are so committed.
His remark that about the woman who said he assaulted her, he said, "Oh, she's not my type," which is like,
it's indicative he's so far down. Yeah. So I think with there's certain people where your job is to get away and to be a courageous source for others who want to get away.
Well, exactly.
And that's it.
Well,
it's happening. It's what's happening with, my partner and her family. It's exactly the same. You just have to help them and say, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And you've given that advice as well. You just have to exit.
Well, yeah. In terms of if we're talking about people that have narcissistic personality disorder, they've invested into a false reality of themselves so heavily, and they need the energy and the suffering of others, or the unease and stress of others, as a fuel source. It's a dynamic that's just weird beyond belief.
I don't have that. I didn't realize that's not, I'm not like that. I'm more just like my fantasies.
Like
my fantasies are more like I would pull people into it.
Exactly.
Not, I don't want them to suffer.
Exactly. And narcissism is defined like somebody who digs taking lots of selfies on Instagram, all the way to like somebody who's covertly trying to destroy another person's life. That word is the blurriest word in the human language. That's the problem with that word, and I think it's actually a blurred out word on purpose, because it's actually indicative of the condition that it's like sort of like it's a blurry condition. It works in the sort of like beneath, and like, until you really wake up to it, then it becomes really obvious what's going on.
Right.
But there is no turning back in terms of like, if we're talking about gurus or like people that have MPD. There is no turning back for them, because they've invested into a false reality of themselves that's like their actual authentic self is so small, afraid.
They'd rather die.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Exposure feels like death, so there is no turning back. So like, as soon as you start waking up, that's why if you wake up in a family of origin of this and you start threatening that apple cart, you're basically threatening the lives of those people. So of course you're getting kicked to the curb, and you get kicked to the curb with a quickness that blows your fucking mind, because you shouldn't, because in some level, like, family structure, you think of it as like, it's blood is thicker than water, all the stuff you're taught the whole time. But what's interesting too, on the other side, to frame that in a positive way, on the other side of like discovering yourself on the outs of a family of origin, and then like going through all this like crazy healing work and stuff like that, what happens is, because you don't have the family of origin structure anymore, the world becomes your family of origin, and you become more invested in just people in your everyday life. I remember just like, being super lonely when this was first happening to me, and just like the person that worked at the bodega became super important to me, because, there was, but then those relationships actually build and evolve, and it's weird. Like, it's like actual, like, the world starts blossoming in profound ways, because the other thing that happens is, if your life is built on a premise of a falsehood, like a gaslight, you can never really find your power. You can never really find your freedom. So if you're, exactly. with the guru and it's bullshit, essentially at the core, like there might be some nice truths sprinkled on top, but it's built on a gaslight. It's built on bullshit. That in and of itself is going to stop you from discovering your power until you escape that fucking cult.
That's exactly it. And that you don't. What's crazy about cults and spiritual groups that I don't know if families are the same, but
well, they can be if they're really
dark.
If they're MPD families, which unfortunately there's so many. So
would you say in a family like that though? Would you say that there is so in a spiritual group?
Yeah.
There's the promise of liberation if you stay surrendered.
They have that, yeah.
They have that in families too?
Yes, they do.
So like, what's an example? Like, how?
Well, an example of that would be like, okay, there's, you'll get taken care of. There'll be money at the end of it, or this or that. There's versions of that,
like loyalty to the family.
Loyalty, there is that.
Okay.
Yeah, you're taken care of, because that's the other thing that happened to me when I was out on my own. Suddenly, and I came close to becoming homeless at that point too. Not that I was ever getting any kind of like financial anything, but there was like the idea that like on some level I would be taken care of at the end. Like there was more of a cushion. Well, there was a cushion anyway. It wasn't like my family's not rich or anything like that, but there's a cushion there to like, just in normal way families operate. Like when folks pass on, they leave what there's left to the kids. Once that's gone and you don't have anything, and you're an artist or something like that, and a lot of people like that's their whole reality anyway, but for me it's made me dig so far deeper into like progressing as a human being on every level. Even starting this podcast was an example of that, or like just getting way more involved in my own music and my own work and stuff like that. It's really been beneficial, because of just that. You have to like sort of dig deeper, I guess. There's no, an extreme example is if you are a rich person or a rich kid and you have a trust fund, it kind of like, well, Bob Dylan has that line like ruin like a rich man's child or something like that, whereas like you don't have the same motivation to find your power and to manifest the fullness of who you are, because you're taken care of on some level.
And perhaps...
And maybe that guru dynamics is like that too.
Well, but everything begins with a family. So in a sense, I think what gurus often do is they replicate an unhealthy family structure.
Yeah.
With a patriarch or a matriarch who never lets their children grow up.
Well, and
basically,
and and you did say, you're not the type of person that would fall into a guru, but I gotta say, I in full disclosure, one of the gurus I was following on YouTube, I did consider going to, and it was when I was at like a dark time with like just really like still, getting, I almost said escaping, but I'm trying to soft pedal it all the time because I don't want to like keep doing this, I'm like. But there's no way to talk about my life without just talking about my life.
Well, that's where I'm at too with all this stuff.
It's like you feel kind of like, oh, I don't really want to expose this, but at the same time, it's like what, and talk about nothing.
But it's good to have it if you keep a sense of humor. Like, like I remember I tweeted after Wild Country came out. I said, I said, as someone that's been in 2.5 cults, that really resonated, and someone tweeted back to me. After the first one, there's no excuse.
That's fucking funny.
You're totally right, man.
Fool me once, fool me twice.
After the first one, there's
but I think
that's funny retort.
It was great, but what it highlighted, what it ignores, is that if you don't deal with the psychological issue that's leading you into that dynamic, you will just find a different cult to join.
Well, right.
Similarly with families, if you don't deal with the family stuff, you'll recreate it in your own family with your kids and your. Yeah. So I think like for me, I had the opportunity through like insight at various moments to see the corruption of that particular dynamic,
right?
But not the insight to see the corruption of the entire dynamic.
Yeah.
So I would basically hop, and I think it's quite common. It's more common than you realize. Like when you meet people, because reading a lot of these NXIVM articles, I've been so interested. You should read about it because the guy just got found guilty.
After this conversation, I certainly will.
Yeah, so
because this is blowing my mind.
But
what's interesting
about that is it's one of the articles said one of the biggest myths about cults is that they're full of like unintelligent hippies, it's like they're mostly upper middle class, above average intelligence, quite successful.
Right.
It's people that are actually coming into their power, and then someone gets in there and goes, you don't have it yet. Do you want to really get it,
bro? That's so interesting because that's where I was. That I was coming into my power.
Yeah.
And but I was really intrigued by this person. I still am, but like just on a like I know I'm not going. Let's put it that way. Like, and who knows? That's real interesting because, and then like I think the things I'm starting to share about now are, in terms of how to become self-empowered, and I think that might be the difference. Like if you're trying to like say, this is something that is really self-empowering, because then you're not asking anyone to follow you. You're just saying, here's something that's self-empowering. So for you to be self-empowered, you know.
So I think where we may have a difference,
like
strategically, is that
like go on a run every day. It's self-empowering, but that's not. You don't have to follow me.
Yeah.
Because I said go jog.
But I actually, I would argue that it's not the jog that's self-empowering. It's the decision to take the jog.
Okay.
So in a way,
that's true.
There's a futility to me in recommending modalities because I actually think it's the space you make a decision from that really empowers you. Yeah. So that's
probably true.
I think we're both dealing with
that's probably
how
true.
do we share this with people, right?
So
my attitude has kind of been like, you know what? I'm just gonna like vibrate where I'm at. And just be like, you know what? This is what it looks like to be a 40-year-old artist who's vibing on life, who's saying fuck you to these power structures of the past. And I want to make the weird music I want to make and collaborate and have fun and be married and be a dad and be a wild man. Because I think like part of the wildness of my own mind is also what I was running from. But I was like, religion, it does this amazing job of keeping at bay our wildness and our shamanic tendencies. You know what I mean? And
can't do this.
But as an artist and as a lover of life, we have to allow ourselves to become intoxicated by existence and say like, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to let it overtake me and I'm going to have an experience and be a human. And
Baudelaire has a poem like get drunk on everything, drunk on life, drunk on love, drunk on it's something about getting drunk, but drunk on everything. Yeah, when you said intoxicated.
And that's that's partly in how this relates to my relationship to expanded consciousness or psychedelics or drugs, is that like I have been, as long as I've been aware of altering your consciousness, I've been aware of this idea of addiction. So their narratives have been in my mind together. And I see part of my own journey as being about actually figuring out my truth about that. Because when I have liked altering my consciousness all my life. I like it. I would be dishonest to say that's not true. Does that have addictive components to it? Some days. It does. But I would be belittling my own journey to say it was all driven by a wound. And I'm an explorer. I had Miles Davis Bitches Brew on because it goes out there, man. And I like it. And I like that that's where LSD can take you. And I find that like, a lot of what I am determined to do in the next 40 years, if I get it, or the next 50 years, is to make a similar transition that I've made with my spiritual journey, with every other part of my life, where I can stand there going like, I'm following my own rules. You know what I mean? Like I know what's true for me, and I'm not borrowing. I don't want to borrow frameworks. I don't want to borrow language. I want to be able to sit here at 70 or 80 and be in integrity. You know, and that's the journey as I see it.
You sort of foresaw the addiction. I mean, going back to when you were 14, your band was called Noise Addict.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
but it's funny because my addiction came up in
manifesting.
It came up in an area that I would have never anticipated. It came up in my spiritual questing. No one talks about that. So I was like, I just keep watching like, what's my relationship like to pot? What's my relationship like to beer? Those things have never presented a problem. What's presented a problem has been my need to have spiritual teachers tell me what to do. That's the thing that has not destroyed, but run the risk of destroying relationships. Or
you've sought your oppressors.
Yeah. And that to me is like,
that's wild.
I will take full ownership for that addiction. And I will be on guard against that until my last dying day.
Nice. Well, we went really deep.
Wow. my head is spinning literally, man. It's like I expected it to like,
I'm just curious.
I didn't know we were going to talk about this stuff either.
This has been amazing,
So
dude.
I think we gave the guru enough time.
Yeah, man.
We should put him to
let's
sleep.
put him to sleep.
But just a quick thing on religion. You grew up Jewish,
Yeah.
and your wife is what?
Yeah, her mum's Jewish. Yeah.
Okay, and so with your feelings to religion, and I kind of share everything you just said. I kind of share those opinions. I grew up Jewish, but I don't identify as Jewish, and my partner is Catholic. And then how do you, with everything how you feel now, how do you bring Goldie up? Like, what's her like
I said, I bring her up. She's being raised by artists.
Artists with integrity.
I mean, I think.
And what does she say when you said she just comes home and some of her friends like?
She was like,
I have the same problems with my daughter.
She
some
said,
of her friends like.
She said this one told me
Jesus.
I'm not allowed to like Jesus.
Right. No.
She said one of her friends said you can't like Jesus because you're Jewish. And Goldie came in and she was like, can't I like Jesus? I was like, you can like Jesus. I was like, that's her problem. If she thinks certain people can't like, the main thing I'm trying to do is help her not take on other people's baggage about spirituality. Because kids don't have that baggage unless you give it to them.
They're not aware of anything until you tell them and make them aware of it.
If it comes up, I was like, you want to hear a cool story about Jesus, cool story about Buddha? There's a lot of cool stories we can tell. But I'm not going to tell you, you have to identify that and make that exclusively who you are. That's not your problem.
Right.
Cool.
Well, what are you working on musically?
Yeah. So,
because you're doing the soundtrack, right, for camping? Is that right?
I did that.
That's
Yeah,
done.
that show. So I scored the last Lena Dunham, Jenny Connor show, which Ione was in, the Jen Garner show camping on HBO. It was pretty weird, pretty stressful show. You should watch it if you're.
It's.
I don't
be
really watch
honest.
TV mostly.
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it like it is. So, I watched it. It's an amazing cast. Like top actors, and thinking that it comes from Lena. So. It was a rough watch. It was like I wanted to get through it, but there's so many uncomfortable situations.
It is a barrage of discomfort.
The dynamic of it is
that sounds like
stressful.
something I would like, though.
I like
tension.
You know what's weird about it? You know what's weird about this piece of art, interestingly, and I'm not...
What were they going for?
Just that.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting about art, that I think sometimes we judge it by what we'd like it to be rather than what it's trying to be. And what I try and do with art is I go, what was it going for? Did it get there or not?
I was like, what were they going for? It was just uncomfortable, and I got through it. And okay, I watched it, and
you don't know why, maybe.
Okay.
Telling it like it is.
Because you know when you're
I don't know. I just felt like, okay, we watched it, we got through it.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Love you,
it was
baby.
not his. It was not his cup of tea. But actually, that is the experience.
And your wife was great in it.
Yeah, that's the experience the creators were going for.
Yeah.
So all you can do is go, look, the world of artistry is diverse.
So
and
was
weird
it do they consider it a success? Because I mean,
it was not a commercial success.
It wasn't a commercial success, but
I think
isn't it HBO? Like it won't. It's like,
yeah, but I think even if it's a limited series, there's always like the door can be open to future things if there's enough people watch it. I don't think in this case it got that.
okay.
But
if
I
that's
think
what you're going for, then you know you're not going to get the commercial success.
yeah, but you know what? It's like
now this makes me want to watch it. Honestly, this whole
people should.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, I think in terms of camping, I think there's a lot of things. It was a little bit of a perfect storm of discomfort for people, even down to I think people's feelings about Lena, for whatever reason. And she's someone I'm working on another collaboration with. In some ways, precisely because of her ability to make people feel anything. I think in this world,
master of that.
It is so difficult to get a reaction. There is so much content. Yeah. And I think Lena's ability to make people feel and think is unparalleled.
Yeah.
And she takes the brunt of that, and she'd be the first to admit she's made mistakes. And, but I think... Anyway, my point...
I like what Andy Warhol says. Make art, and while everyone tells you how shitty it is, make more art.
Exactly.
That's the healthiest attitude about art I've ever fucking heard.
And ultimately, like guys like you and me, we're doers.
Yeah.
We just want to keep going.
Fuck yeah,
and I
dude.
like working with people like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of why people weren't able to digest it, I think there was two things. I think there were aspects of the team that people found it very uncomfortable to see Jennifer Garner playing quote unquote unlikable, which because she's like America's sweetheart.
This makes me want to watch
And
this.
you
She's my
make-
least favorite character.
But
on the
she's-
show.
That's why you just said she's
No
supposed.
one- no one likes
she's
her.
supposed to
She was
be.
over the top.
But anyway.
dude, it's over the top.
All right,
anyway.
now I really
Yeah,
want to
Over
watch.
the
This is
top.
like a great review.
But
of this
anyway,
show.
there was that aspect, and then I think there was the fact that there
Sorry,
was
Jennifer.
no, there was no the show.
Please come on our podcast.
Yeah.
But the show offered no relief. The show offered no relief.
Relief,
It created
no relief.
tension. But again, I look at it in terms of like, hey, if that's what you're going for, if you got it, right on.
You killed
We're
it.
artists. At the end of the day, you can't second guess what the audience. I'm shocked sometimes at the things that blow up. They're not always the things
what?
you think.
Yeah, like
What's
what?
the recent
I wanted
thing?
to say
Well,
like
what's your current favorite show?
Well, a show I'm watching with my daughter is this reality show called Born This Way about Down syndrome.
Nice.
Kids, because my daughter loves special needs. Like she just has this like innate heart, like obsession with special needs kids, and she's loving this show. And I would never think that would be something I'd enjoy watching. Anyway, I don't know. The point is, I had a great experience with that, and I loved being part of something that got a reaction.
You're part
Even
of the
if
reason
it's-
I watched it.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
thank
like,
you,
Ben
thank you.
scored this thing. We gotta
Yeah.
watch
Anyway, so worked on that, loved
He's
it.
a big fan.
Yeah, no, thank
We
you.
were listening to your
yeah.
record. He's
But it was-
singing along to every song.
But was very grateful.
Don't
to-
out me.
No, it was very grateful to Jenny and Lena for giving me the opportunity. I love doing that. I've written a musical with Tom
Oh, right.
Robbins.
B is
called
for
Beers
beer.
There. Beer is
Yeah,
for beer.
B
the
is for beer.
musical.
Beer. What-
And that we're currently working with about trying to develop it into a children's animated feature film.
That's great.
How far are you into that? I mean, the
We-
poster's already there. It's
Yeah,
not
well,
really
it came out as an album.
It
So
did.
the album's on. People can
Is
listen.
it? Are you going to
Yeah,
be
it
like
has,
a
like-
Broadway kind of musical thing?
It's a little
or-
weird.
I'm a
I actually
terrible
think.
fan. I didn't know it was out.
Yeah, check it out. It's a little weird for the stage.
Yeah.
I think an animated feature is actually a really good. The cast is amazing. It's Belinda Carlisle, John Cryer, Rose Byrne, Paul F. Tompkins, Busy Phillips.
Rose Byrne, you go way
Yeah,
back with
yeah.
her.
Yeah.
How far back?
I mean, we met in. I was
Australia?
probably 20 or 19. We've
You
known
were
each
in a
other.
movie together?
Yeah, we acted in a movie
Oh,
together.
wow.
So that we're developing that. My little duo Radner and Lee. We just made a new album. It's going to come out in the new year. I just made a
Second
record.
album.
Yeah, second album. I just made a record that's coming out on New West in January.
Arthur
called-
Buck came out on New West.
Yeah, so New
Yeah.
West. I put out a bunch of records on them. I really like. So I've made a record called Quarter Century Classics.
Is this a solo record?
It's all covers of like Fugazi, The Beat Happening,
Amazing. Oh,
Dinosaur Jr. It's basically
Amazing.
me going like, we talk about classics. Like,
Oh yeah, you
like
had a thing on. I think I saw something on Twitter about '90s. Your knowledge of '90s music
Yeah, well,
is
I was
like
like-
this. Your knowledge of life is like this.
yeah.
So-
Well, I
so-
was kind of thinking like Sonic Youth were like my Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Dinosaur Jr. were my Led Zeppelin. Yet somehow, because these are more niche artists, it isn't quite. It's not like Sonic Youth are played on classic rock
Right.
station radio,
No.
but they'd be played on my classic rock radio. So I was like,
That's true.
I want to make an album about classic rock for someone my age. So it's all like covers of indie and punk songs that I grew up on in like late 80s, early 90s.
I feel like you dabbled in that before, and I respect you for that because I don't know, like a long time ago.
What do you mean he dabbled in it
you
before?
put out a full Against Me album.
Oh, yeah.
That he just
Oh,
he
right.
loved, he
I
loved the
remember
album,
that.
and he just
Yeah.
how did
well,
that
that's when
come
we
about?
met. Actually, I'd just done that, and we chatted
That
about
was
backstage.
cool. Oh yeah, I remember we talked
Yeah,
about that. Yeah,
that came out because I
You
was
did it
friends
on your
with-
own.
Yeah, I was friends with Tegan and Sarah, and Tegan had sung on the record. That was how I got introduced to it. I was like, oh, I'll check it out. Tegan sings on that record, and Butch Vig produced it. I was like, something's going on here. There's enough interesting people.
I didn't know Butch Vig produced.
Yeah,
it.
just that one. It was
That's
meant to
cool.
be their like major label breakthrough, and it sort of like didn't happen in the
But
way that.
it got huge though, kind of, right?
Well,
Or
it was
not
like-
huge, but it got popular.
Yeah, it was one of those records that was just like
I
for
mean,
people
Ben
that
Lee
got it.
made
they
a whole
got it.
cover
Yeah.
record on it.
So
So
I remember I was on the flight to Australia. I downloaded it before. I put on my headphones and I was like, "This is pop craftsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
I love this record." And it's like, Against Me was sort of like, kind of like a hardcore. I mean, they're sort of hard to describe their genre.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was just like, I heard the songs and I felt like I wanted to hear them as acoustic songs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, I asked Nick, my friend who I was collaborating with, like, hey, you want to make this record in like a week? and we just covered the album, and it's up on iTunes.
Why don't you make a punk record, man?
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Because I like what you were saying. Like when you started talking about punk rock, that was really cool.
But
like,
you know what's weird?
The negativity, or like I think you making a punk rock, because the best punk rock is like based in like some people that know how to write good songs.
Yeah.
And you do. And if you like took that energy and made, I mean, whatever. I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
But it just be
You're
cool.
my guru.
I'm trying to be your guru, bro.
Well, you know what's interesting for me? The punk that I most connected with was like Jonathan Richman.
I know, Modern
Television
Lovers.
Personalities, Violent Femmes. Like I actually like the acoustic stuff.
Oh, okay.
So in a way, like for me, punk and acoustic music
always
went hand in hand.
Yeah.
And from there, it was like a very small stretch to like folk music. So like I love the Stooges, but my favorite song is "Gimme Danger" because it's got an acoustic guitar.
Oh
in
yeah,
it.
it's true.
So like that's the side of
Gimme
punk that I really like
danger,
aesthetically
little
fell in love with.
stranger.
But I want to go back to something you said in the very, very beginning, where you didn't want to become like the people you admired. And going back to one of your first albums, you have a song on there, "I Wish I Was Him."
Yeah.
I wish I was him.
Yeah, where he's like, "I wish I was him."
It's about hero worship. Really.
Yeah, it's about and to me, like you were always singing about Evan Dando.
Yeah. Well, I said that I wrote the song. It was a more general song about somewhere there. That's the first 7-inch of it.
I wish I was him.
I wrote the song about. I was 14.
Dedicated to the role model of our generation, Evan, Jim, Bob, Ozzy, Thurston. Oh, it's about all those.
It was
Steve,
all just
Mark,
like
Kim,
Kurt. But the front cover is all clippings of Evan Dando.
Juliana. So Juliana Hatfield is on there, and you've worked with her.
Yeah,
so you got to work
good.
with your idols of 14.
Yeah, I've gotten to work with a lot of people I admire. There's a few people who.
So did you become like Evan? Going back to Evan for a second.
There was. I worked very closely with Evan. I co-wrote a large part of his album "Baby I'm Bored," which I love.
Oh, really?
I wrote like
I didn't know that.
The big hit of that Ben wrote.
I wrote
didn't know
this
that.
song "Hard Drive" and a song called "All My Life"
That's cool.
I just gave them to him, and he did to me definitive versions of those songs.
Don't you love that?
Yeah, it was the best. Man.
Don't worry about it, Ehud. It's all good.
But okay, so this goes into another realm, which is like my collaborations with lunatics.
Okay.
Because I've also worked with Harmony Korine. I've worked with Daniel Johnston. I would say Lena falls into this category. These are eccentric geniuses.
Yeah.
And I have there's a quote I always loved. I'm not sure if it was Bach or Mills or Stipe or one of the REM guys said it, but he said, "We always wanted to be the acceptable face of the unacceptable."
That's great.
And that was what REM were. They were the band your parents would like that came out of unlistenable music, basically, like that I love too, and I always felt these lunatics, and I say that with the most endearing way, I could be a mediator for them because I can sit in a meeting about money. I can keep a schedule and a budget together. I can allow someone to be themselves and be eccentric. And in some ways, like my production and my co-writing, like even stuff like I just produced this record, Jill Sobule album. And Jill is very eccentric.
Yes.
And
I've worked with her.
Yeah. So one of the things about Jill that's interesting is she is a never-ending well of ideas. So when she asked me to produce her record, she had, I would say, well over 100 songs in a Dropbox folder. And she'd say, "I'd be happy with any of them. Can you put an album together out of these 100?
I've been in that same exact situation before.
And I felt like what she wanted was a curator who would say, "You get what I'm about.
Right.
Help me form this into something."
Yeah.
And I think in some ways that skill set has allowed me to collaborate with some of these lunatics and help them get their vision across in a way that was a little... So with Evan, I would never... He's inimitable. He is someone who I don't think anyone should or would want to follow in their footsteps exactly after. But he truly is a charismatic thinker and entertainer. And there are aspects of him that I carry in my heart and in my vision of what I want to be as an artist. His connection to a good song.
Mm-hmm.
I think Evan, at his greatest, can zoom in on what's a great song. I think the reason he's collaborated with people like Tom Morgan, Willie Mason, and the covers he's done of like Townes Van Sant and Big Star, and like, this is a guy who knows what a good song is.
Mm-hmm.
Some would argue it's like Frank Sinatra. That Frank Sinatra, I don't think, ever wrote a great song.
No, he didn't write songs.
But he could spot one.
Yeah.
And he could deliver it and interpret it. And it's a skill to be... It's almost like A&R.
What do you think makes a great song?
That's an evolving thing for me. I think partly there is a narrative that's believable.
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy into the character being created by the song. I was listening to A Boy Named Sue the other day, the Johnny Cash version of it, and thinking about Shel Silverstein and how Shel Silverstein had a character and Johnny Cash had a character as a singer.
Yeah.
And together the song served the narrative of the character actor.
Yeah.
It was like the right script and the right performer making a great movie. That's from a lyrical and narrative perspective. From a melodic perspective, I think it should not be great poetry. I think if a song is great poetry, it probably won't be a great song.
Really?
I think we've got poetry for that.
What about Bob Dylan and like Leonard Cohen? They wrote great poetry, didn't they?
Yeah, but they're not really read at poetry readings.
Yeah.
They're not really taught as poetry in school. They might be brought in as an outlier by an English teacher.
Right.
But essentially, when you look at like Blake or Rimbaud or Yeats, I don't think Bob Dylan or Leonard Cohen as poets are really on that level.
Right.
As songwriters, they are the most poetic of songwriters.
Yeah.
And I think songs should work as songs. Like my favorite, the moment I understood this was when I heard a Phil Spector interview after Be My Baby was a huge hit. So early in his career, right? And the DJ, it was like an AM radio DJ, was saying to him, Mr. Spector, let me read these lyrics to you of your so-called hit song. Be my baby, be my little baby, be my one and only baby, be my baby. He's trying to put it down, and Phil Spector said, "Yeah, but you're missing the beat."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Yeah, it's the two. They have to go together.
It's the
they
same
have
with
to go
rap
together.
songs and lyrics and beats. It falls into that category.
And when it
Huge
doesn't,
hits.
I actually think it's a mark of respect for a song when it doesn't work as poetry.
Yeah.
Because it means they're honoring the song as its craft of its own, you know?
Well, one of my favorite Bob Dylan songs is Knocking on Heaven's Door. And like the lyrics are great, but they're not crazy. They're just simple lines, you know?
Sure.
Like, so it's like, and that's one of my favorites. It just hits you.
For sure.
You know,
and like
you're
look
good, you're good with the melodies. Like I think that's
you could write
an unusual gift. Like it's like that's a good gift to have, that melodic gift.
Yeah, I don't know what that is because it's
that's
not
magical. It's like like where does that come from?
Well, I do have music like in my family DNA, kind of like I think I've got a picture up here. That's my great uncle. He was a gypsy violinist in Berlin in the 1920s. And I had another great uncle who was the court violinist for Tsar Nicholas in Russia. So
that's interesting.
So
have you done like an ancestral line thing? Like had that whole...
it's just like Ashkenazi Jew. That's all that comes back with 99.9%.
Okay.
I haven't gone into like a whole family tree. Like, but in terms of the way violin in gypsy music or in classical, it's a very melodic instrument. I think there's probably some kind of melodic gift more than a prodigal musical gift in our family. So I was saying to you before,
that's the important gift, though, the melodic gift, I think.
Well, because you can hire people who are great musicians.
Well, exactly, and plus writing songs is a rare talent for some reason.
Yeah, and you can actually usually get better at an instrument through practice. Getting better at melody is hard.
Well, because melody is a gift.
Yeah.
I think melody is a gift.
Yeah.
I think lyric writing is a gift too. But I mean, you can work hard at lyric writing, I think, too, but I think melody has to kind of come to you like a present from the universe in a way.
Yeah, and I'm a bit divided on, it's interesting because melody, like I always say to Goldie, like, because I love lyrics, but whenever we're listening, like she's going through a huge Queen phase, like all her friends are right now. And we'll get to a part of the verse, like she'll hear a song like "We Are the Champions," right? And she'll like get what the chorus is about. She'll be like, "What's that line in the verse?" I was like, "Who cares? Listen to how he's singing it."
Yeah.
Like the best pop lyrics or rock, it's like the passion also is so important. But with melody, I have two minds about it. Because it can be almost mantra-esque in that a beautiful melody and harmony, it can lull you into an openness to ideas. Like if a pointed idea is delivered with harmony and melody, suddenly you find yourself singing a lyric that you wouldn't even dare let yourself think. Like I think of the Misfits song, Skulls. That was a song I covered when I was younger. And it's this song, here, This is actually the guitar I played when I was a teenager. It's like a really bad guitar, but so it's so out of tune. Corpses all hang headless and limp, bodies with no surprises, and the blood drains down like devil's rain. We'll bathe tonight. I want your skull. I need your skulls. Demon I am and face I peel to feel your skin turned inside out. And I want to have you on my wall. I gotta have you on my wall. I want your skulls. I need your skulls. Anyway, so incidentally, that's the song I first heard Evan Dando play.
Yes, because that's his arrangement. I was like, okay.
Who's someone who heard the song underneath the Misfits playing that, right? So now that song, I would never utter the words,
I want your
demon I am and face I peel to feel your skin turned inside out. I want to have you on my... This is a serial killer talking, right?
Yeah.
But you juxtapose it with this beautiful melody and suddenly there is permission to experience something that... And I'm not a big proponent of... I don't think this is a gateway into me actually killing people.
No.
I think this is a horror movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was actually not even really listening. I was filming you doing it, but I was also like just listening to this. I just was enjoying the song. I wasn't even taking in the lyrics.
But so there you go.
Except for the skull bit. I was like, that's cool. I need your skulls. That was registering.
But so there you go.
And nothing else was registering.
So what would it take?
It's what Goldie said. Don't listen to that. Listen to the song.
So what would it take to get Ben Lee to sing the words, I want your skull, I need your skull? It takes a melody like that, right? And a vibe like that, songwriting.
And a mad genius like Evan Dando.
Yeah, and Glenn Danzig also. So that's one way I think about melody, right? But the other way I think about melody is in this Captain Beefheart way that he talked about. He did this interview I loved where he said, I make I wish I remember the words. It was something like, I make non-repetitive music to break people out of narcolepsy or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, like he talked about how unexpected things happening jolt your mind into new types of thoughts and spaces. And what I find so irritating about pop music now is it's almost like it's got one energy to it through the whole song. Like within the first
dynamic enough.
the first 15 seconds on Spotify, I guess it's designed for people in a streaming world. You got to give people the full pitch of the sexual energy of the song.
It's a short retention span.
Yeah, whereas like if you look at like we put on a record made in the 70s and the song might be 9 minutes long and end in a totally different place where it started because it's like there's a journey happening, you know? And so I do like the idea that melody used intelligently and unexpectedly and harmony used unexpectedly it's like it opens you up to new ideas, you know? So anyway, it's all connected, but melody is an incredibly powerful tool to have in your arsenal.
Definitely. So getting back to the thing where you were talking about like being drawn to these like really wild, mad genius type characters, what do you think draws you to them? And like you're saying, like you have because you know, you've got that mad genius quality too, but you can have, I don't know, you can put on a suit or like, you know, figuratively put on a suit, probably literally too, but
yeah, I can go negotiate a mortgage.
Like,
basically,
right?
You know?
Like, and actually, it's weird because I'm like, coming into that ability into my life. I've like evolved into that ability more recently, starting to like grow into that later in life, because through like genuine sobriety and all that stuff, it's like, because I used to be the other type where I couldn't do that.
You are a mad genius.
But no, I'm saying like thank you, but like I guess that's a compliment.
It is.
No, but I'm just saying like I used to be the one that couldn't put on the, figurative suit, or whatever. Whereas now I'm like actively working to, like when we were talking about Duff McKagan, how do you say his last name? McKagan, how he became a business mind, and how like that's real interesting. But like, so.
Okay, so you know what I think it is? I think the human mind.
What draws you to those types?
Okay,
stuff?
Yeah. Well, I think the human mind covers the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And I think partly when we're young and superstitious, we have a fear that if we cultivate that side, it's going to like dull the wildness and the creativity. Yeah. And so I think a lot of creative people go, I'd better not ever think about money, or I'd better not ever have responsibilities.
Well, in the 90s, it was like uncool. Like it was
uncool,
better
right?
to be like, oh my God, I'm freaked out. I can't even barely handle life. And that gives me artistic legitimacy.
Totally. But then you look at someone like Frank Zappa, who's like making probably like the weirdest, like kind of like conceptual music.
Or Mick Jagger, one of the greatest songwriters ever, underrated,
and soulful,
actually. And
soulful,
just beyond, bro. Like,
and an economics student,
student. Yeah.
So what I see in like, I would say like this gets back to the spiritual conversation.
Yeah.
That like what I view as my current idea about enlightenment or whatever it is the ability to access all of these muscles and abilities simultaneously.
Yeah.
And so I think what like trips people out about me sometimes, like those that kind of find me a bit odd, is the ability to stand in all these different worlds, the ability to be a responsible parent and an advocate for psychedelics, to be someone who will like put on Captain Beefheart, but also likes collaborating with Mandy Moore. To be like I don't see these sides.
I totally get all.
They're
that.
all in me, man. It's
me,
all in me.
Like all that.
And
all
the side that like
sense.
wants to make money,
of course,
and likes making money, but also feels that the world is unjust and does need rebalancing, and wants to be part of genuine social change. Like, I don't know. I just see it as kind of like, so. In terms of what I get out of like working with people like, and Tom Robbins, I would put in also very much in this category of someone who has put the art first and has taken his internal journey first and foremost. I am students of these people. I see they have.
So you're not trying to save them; you're learning from them.
I mean, I think at my worst, I've tried to. I had a sort of idea that I could elevate what they did in a way by having a commercial sensibility or something. That never works. And I gave that up long ago. I think what I look at best is like, it's almost like the blessing of being near a pure creative dynamic mind is sort of worth the headache. And it is a headache because like anyone who has devoted themselves 110% to their creativity might have some functional issues in terms of their interpersonal kind of dynamics, but I make allowances, not to the degree that it will disrupt my life but I like Questlove. Like, did you ever read his book?
No.
He wrote a book you would love called Creative Quest.
Okay,
it came out last year.
Out.
He got nominated for a Grammy for the audiobook.
Wow.
He's someone who
I'm gonna check that out. I love audiobooks.
He's an incredible responsible participant in the music community, right?
Yeah,
he shows up every day to his job at late night. He produces, he turns things in, but he also understands that when you're working with a D'Angelo or a Prince or some of these people, that you kind of gotta like let them go and do their thing, and you gotta like harness yourself to this rocket ship and go for the ride with them. And that's like I like how people like him manage to do both worlds. Like they do the DJ gig where they show up and they deliver and they express themselves, and then they go out there with D'Angelo for 4 years making an album and go, it's done when it's done. Like why not
they
be
hop
able to
on
do
stage
both?
with Prince at Madison Square Garden.
More is more, I think, because like because actually it reminded me of like an article I read with Questlove where he was like, I'm doing this. I have like these books, like tons of stuff. Like he was listing a laundry list of stuff. And I was still like, had a lot of these dreams of doing a lot of the things I'm kind of doing now, but I hadn't had the capacity to do them yet. And I was kind of envious when I was reading that article, like, damn, I want to manifest on that level.
High functioning.
And it's like, and just in doing like this podcast, it's like super busy, but it's like, I don't know, like if you spin a bunch of different plates, they actually, I think they help each other.
I have a thing
You know
I
what I
always
mean?
say
It's
about
not-
this
yeah.
with juggling.
Yeah.
Like I only know how to juggle 3 balls.
I can
but it's
juggle
sort of
3.
Okay, so
We should juggle at the end.
But what you generally find in juggling
Yeah.
is that if you look too closely at any one ball, you drop them all.
Right.
But if you stay connected to all 3,
Yeah.
and you're kind of actually not focused on any of them,
Right.
they
help
keep
each
going
other.
round. That's it.
Yeah.
So I look at it in terms of my bandwidth as a creative person does seem to increase, but there's a condition to it.
What?
I actually have to be connected to the project at a deep level.
Yeah.
I can't take on a million things from an obligation standpoint.
Right.
It suffers.
Of course.
Then.
Yeah, you gotta have fun with it.
But if I love them all, I can do them all.
Yeah.
And so I actually welcome in, like when I look at what I'm creating for the next chapter of my life, I welcome in more projects, but I welcome in projects that I find invigorating and creative and dynamic and challenging and exciting.
Real quick, like, what was it like when you were young and you got into the whole Beastie Boys sort of camp? Because Beastie Boys for me are like one of the greatest bands ever. Like, I just was a huge fan. Do you
Yeah.
But
Have
did you
any-
get into the camp? You were.
Yeah. I mean, when I was
you were a
14,
kid.
like
Yeah.
Mike.
How did that happen?
Well, the guy who sort of discovered me was an Australian guy named Steve Pav, who has played a pretty integral role in Australian music. Like, he discovered Wolf Mother, the Presets, the Avalanches. Like, he's kind of been one of these guys who's just kept his ear to the ground constantly. And so he gave me my first opportunity, and it was opening for Sonic Youth.
Okay.
And
That must
you
have
know,
been like
In Australia.
nerve-wracking
Dude,
as
I was
fuck,
14.
Dude. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the poster from the show. It was
that's
it was
amazing.
Selena's Saturday the 6th of
Where's
February.
your name on this?
No, we weren't announced.
Oh.
It was like on the afternoon of the show.
Oh, okay.
Thurston called and was like, "Hey, I love your tape. Do you want to come up and play a few songs before our set?"
that's amazing.
How the hell did he get it? And
From
not-
Pav, from the guy who discovered me was their promoter. He brought them to Australia. So he also brought the Beastie Boys. And there was a big culture. It's hard for people to realize now, but because of the internet now. But then it was like everyone gave each other cassettes.
Yeah.
You know, that was how you discovered
That's
music.
how I got signed.
So bands would be like, "Hey, man, you got to check this out. I found this thing in Australia." So my tapes sort of circulated.
Right.
And so Mike D had started Grand Royal, and he reached out and said, "I want to." So
What happened when he reached out? Were you like, what the fuck? Was it like amazing?
Well, it
or
was-
were you expecting
Well, it
it,
was
or-
the Sonic Youth thing had already happened, so,
yeah.
and I was
so you were
feeling.
starting to get the idea that something was about to happen.
Well, I guess I felt that it was really weird because I felt like I was very lucky. Put it this way, my skill set as a 14-year-old could only have thrived in 1992.
Right. That's interesting.
I was doing these recordings that in my delusional thinking sounded like The Wall or Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, yeah, I
thought they were
remember,
like
yeah.
hi-fi amazing.
Yeah.
They sounded like they made the Shags sound professional. Like, and that was actually in fashion.
Yeah.
So I accidentally stumbled into this world of home recording and indie rock that was like,
Yeah, that
my-
says recorded on Philips stereo.
yeah. My limitations at the time, it just perfectly aligned with something culturally going on. And now I've developed a skill set of recording and playing music and writing that I can survive as an equal in the music industry.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was just this weird kismet, you know, this thing happened where like, so I realized that I'd sort of like, you know, just like schlemazzled myself into, it was like a Forrest Gump moment. Although there was massive ambition. So it was almost
Right.
like Forrest Gump with ambition,
Yeah.
you know? And so
He might have low key had ambition.
he probably
too.
did. Yeah, he probably did. So I think the biggest thing and the gratitude that I have for that moment that I stumbled into with Sonic Youth and the Beastie Boys and, you know, these bands supporting Fugazi and Pavement, Sebado, was that this was outsider music. So what I came in with, and I do think it's kind of like where you enter the game stays with you forever.
Right.
You know, unless you're one of these like people that like totally like you hear these stories of like glam bands that like reinvented themselves as grunge bands and that kind of thing. But for most of us, your roots, what you come in with as a teenager, it's like it stays in your DNA. It's like in your blood. And for me, this like kind of like outsider music thing has and that again comes back to why I like Lena, why I like Tom Robbins, why I like Harmony Korine, is they're outsiders.
So what were you doing with Harmony?
We co-wrote a couple songs.
Okay, he's interesting. I've got a chance to meet him a couple times.
Yeah, we were friends back in very chaotic days. It's funny, I saw him, I bumped into him a year or two ago, and he was telling his friend, he's like, we used to write songs sitting on the floor. That was his indicator to him of how young he was. I was like, I still write songs sitting on the floor.
That's funny.
But to him, that was only something that would have happened in his teen years or whatever.
The recording quality, like when you go back and listen to your early stuff, I find it endearing. Like that's what reeled me into you. Yeah. 3 a.m. in New York. And
but that was hi-fi.
That's hi-fi. He's talking about
done in a studio.
Cassette,
I mean, like the home recording stuff was like I had a Tascam 244.
Yeah.
I did not know how to use it. I mean, you should honestly get on. You might have never heard it.
I might probably not.
Numero Uno label put out a Noise Addict retrospective last year on vinyl. It's up on. You can listen on streaming.
Okay.
It has the earliest recordings. It's insane.
We're gonna listen.
I mean, I actually.
We're gonna listen to it.
We're gonna listen to it now.
It is actually insane. Like I listened to this guy. I'm like. The gap between what I was making and what I thought I was making was so ginormous that like it indicates a level of mental instability.
But what is your opinion of those songs as songs? Like, why don't you re-record that stuff today and bring it to what you just described you thought it was?
Because who cares?
Because he's in the moment, bro. He's got like a million and fucking one other ideas.
No,
now.
I mean, I'm sort of like, if I ever wanted to, I would. I have no opposition to it. But
I don't like doing like when people talk about like remixing old things or going back. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I got too many new ideas, and like plus, just going into the past just seems like torture to me.
It would have to have a reason. I mean, when you're an artist, it's like they're like diary entries. So it's kind of like, hey, why don't you take that diary entry and do it in callicgraphy?
Right.
It's like I was like, who cares?
Yeah. So we got to wrap this up, but I want to ask you, because you were talking about how in all the seeking, the thing that really was like been the most, I guess, profound, like spiritual teacher too, was like your relationship with Ione.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, how did you guys meet?
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. When I was 18, I was in LA. I just finished making Something to Remember Me By. And in Australia, it's a bit different because no one, unless you're from a country town, you kind of live near, if you're in a major city, your family's there. You don't really move cities that much. So most people I knew growing up lived in the same city as they grew up in, you know?
Right.
So when I came here, I was quite shocked that almost everyone I knew in LA left LA at Christmas.
Right.
Because at that point, everyone I knew were like bands and stuff, and they all like went back to their families, right? So I found myself in Christmas, I was staying at a friend's house in Glendale. No one I knew was in town. All I was doing was like eating pizza and watching Donahue. That was like my dad. I was sort of depressed, but I was 18. I was just out of high school.
The eating pizza I get, but Donahue, really?
It's what was on TV.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And
he was big.
Yeah, I was like, it was on TV.
He was the Oprah of his time.
I'm just kidding anyway.
Yeah. So I knew one person who stayed in town, and it was this guy Ian Rogers. Ian Rogers, some people, he was actually the Beastie Boys web guy. And he went on to build beats for Dre and Jimmy Iovine.
Oh, wow.
He
So no success at all.
Yeah, but he was an early streaming guy
Yeah.
who saw the vision of it, and you know, now he does he runs all digital for Louis Vuitton Corporate. You know, he's become anyway, long
Can he get you a Louis bag?
Yeah, I should ask him.
Yeah, you definitely should.
Anyway, so he was the only person I knew because his daughter Zoe she'd been as a little girl the Pixie in the Away with the Pixies video. That's how I met them. So I called Ian. I was like, man, you're in town. I don't know anyone in town. He's like, oh, well, this girl I'm dating, Amy, we're going up to her best friend's place for Christmas. She's having just a bunch of people over. So I was like, oh, can I come with you? And he said, yeah, come on. So it was actually this house.
Wow.
The house we're sitting in right now,
This-
right?
this house.
It was Ioni's house.
That's amazing, dude.
And check it out. On Christmas Day, I took mushrooms with all of Ioni's family.
Wow.
That was at 18 years old.
And they took him too.
Yeah. And it was
That's incredible.
And I was 8, but these
fuck?
guys were all older than me, right? So
Yeah.
I was 18. They were like, Ioni's 8 years older than me. So her friends were like 26. You know, when you're an 18-year-old boy, 26-year-old women are women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was just like, in awe of these sexy, like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm taking mushrooms on Christmas in the Hollywood Hills with these sexy, cool, hip women.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just loved it. And
Sounds great.
And I met, and so I met Ioni's brother, Dono, and Dono's a great guy because he's a connector. He stays in touch with everybody. So over the next 10 years, he really kept, there was some connection with him and Ione. Like I lived in New York. He'd say, hey, I'm in New York. My sister's here too. Do you want to come to a party? Or all this kind of stuff. And we were friends. Me and Ione were friends. Like,
so you became friends
but
for a
would
while.
not, we're not super close.
Yeah.
I would say we probably hung out like 10 or 15 times over 10 years. Not many.
Oh, so you didn't get together right away?
We got together 10 years later. So I had a long relationship. She had a baby with someone. Like,
okay, wow.
Like that's my stepdaughter.
Yeah,
so
okay.
We re-met really as single adults.
Wow.
When I was
How
28
Yeah.
and she was 36.
Wow.
And check this out. This is interesting.
That is interesting.
So we connected. We were at a party. My friend Jason Schwartzman was in his cousin Sophia's movie. What was the one she made about Versailles?
The family
with Kirsten Dunst, Marie Antoinette.
Okay.
So we were at the premiere for that, and the after party was at the Chateau Marmont. And me and Ione just sat and we started talking, and we were talking about being artists and spirituality and life. We got a vibe going, and it was very funny. I'm not someone who's like thinks everything's a sign. Like, I think that sort of can be a bit of a self-obsessed mindset where you think the universe is talking to you directly. However, I do think at important times weird stuff happens.
Yeah, synchronicity.
It's just weird. It's just you start going like something happens to make you go, oh, something weird's happening, right? So I had this experience where the day after I met Ione, and we just had this little vibe. It was like 10 years later. I'd never thought of her as a potential partner. Also because she'd been married to Adam Horovitz from the Beastie Boys. So it was like,
which is an interesting connection.
yeah, it was just sort of a whole weird, and she lived in this house that I'd met her in where I was intimidated by everyone.
Yeah.
So I the next day I was driving along down like Lower Fairfax, like down near the farmer's market, and I saw Donovan walking, and I was like, oh, there's Dono. And then my phone rings and it says Dono. And I picked it up and he was like, hey, Dono, I literally just saw you walking down the street. He's like, oh, where? And I said, oh, by the farmer's market. And he's like, oh, I'm not there. I'm sitting with my sister up, wherever they were at a restaurant. I was like, what are you talking about? I just saw you. He's like, I'm not there, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, my sister's here. She says, what's up? And something in my mind just went,
what's up?
Something in my mind went, something's happening.
Right.
That was all it took. And I said to her, ask her if she wants to go see the John and Yoko movie.
Whoa!
Because it was playing
We're
at
going
Sunset
full
5.
circle back to John and
Right.
dude.
So so we went. She
What
said
movie
yes.
was that?
It was that doco that came out 10 years ago or 12
Okay,
years ago now.
I don't remember.
I think it was just called John and Yoko.
So she said yes.
It was about their marriage, and she always said it felt very intense because it was vulnerable, because it was this documentary about two artists who are married, who are helping each other.
And you guys were sitting there watching it, projecting on each
first,
other, like on the first day, like, are we going to get hitched? And you were going to get hitched.
And basically, it unfolded over the next, few months, and then the next year, and even it was interesting, our relationship to this house, because I had a house in Sydney and she had this house, and I was like, let's both sell our houses and start something new. And then we started looking around. We were like, do I have to be like a prideful alpha male who like can't live in a house that like, I was like, you know what?
Another person.
I was like, let me just sell my place and then we've got some extra money. It's like, and
a crazy killer house.
And
by the
let's
way.
make this our own and make it, and I'll put a studio in it and we'll do, and it's been a journey. And honestly, like getting together, I always say that like, I think our getting together has given a lot of our friends hope, because when they always say to us, did you ever think of each other as a potential partner? And neither of us did. We
Wow.
did not. And then one day, suddenly our eyes were open to each other.
Yeah.
And we could see each other that way.
It gives hope because anybody who's making love work like that, and it's like a hopeful vibe. I mean, I haven't really ever met you that much before, and it has given me hope from a distance. You know,
Yeah,
just even
yeah.
knowing it works.
It
you
can
know?
work, man. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it's like we do not have a conventional.
That's what Suzette tells me all the time. My
Yeah.
partner, she's like, when I met you, there was no way I was ever gonna
Yeah.
like get together
Yeah.
with you. It wasn't even in the back of my mind. Like,
And we have pretty interesting histories between the two of us, and we have a pretty interesting present and a future we're creating. But we were talking this morning. She said it's really important to her to protect. It's almost like our golden years. Like she's playing the long game.
Right.
Like she's like, I want to make sure we're like old and we've taken care of this marriage together. And she says, do you think we can do it? I said, I know we can do it because we both want to do it.
Yeah.
Like we are two people who, whatever else has happened, if we've both wanted to do something, we've done it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of all it takes.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's just when one person stops wanting to do it, that's
Yeah.
why it doesn't work.
and then you dragged her to the guru.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to say one thing too about
Yeah.
like the whole thing about synchronicity can become a self-obsessive mindset, like the universe is communicating to you. I would agree with that if you think the universe is only communicating to you.
Yeah.
But if you know that the universe is communicating to everyone all the time, and
Yeah.
then I think it's a fun thing because the universe, I feel like, is constantly communicating to all of us.
Yes.
If we're open to it, and then it's not about just it's me. I'm the special one. I'm not the
Yes.
special one. We're all the special one.
Totally.
You know?
But it's also a lot like psychedelics in that we have to be cautious with the way we interpret the
Yeah.
communication.
Oh, that's true.
Because often I feel
It can
like
veer into psychosis.
yeah, and it can veer into you projecting what you want to happen.
Yeah.
Going, this is going to happen. It's a sign. I got a sign. I got to say,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe you got a sign that you live in a weird universe where anything can happen.
Right.
That might be it.
Yeah.
We don't know what the future's going to
That's
hold.
true.
I'm wary of saying like, I know this will work because I got a sign. Because I've
Yeah.
had those things where like I've had career things where like you bump into someone on this. I remember when Catch My Disease, which is like my biggest song, was being taken to hot AC radio, which was the radio format where you like graduate out of alternative radio.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it going to get on pop radio?
Right.
I came up out of the station all the label were just like hot AC, we're going to hot AC. It was like a catchphrase everyone was saying. And it was like,
like
it
a big
felt like
moment.
the next phase of my career was dependent on what happened at hot AC. I come up out of Grand Central or Penn Station, like one of the big stations when I was living in New York. And this guy comes up to me, goes, he's an Aussie guy. He goes, hey, you Ben Lee? I was like, yeah. He was like, oh man, I'm a fan of your music. I've just moved here. And I was like, oh, cool, man. How's it going? He's like, it's good. You know, I got an opportunity do you know what hot AC is? And I was like, yeah, I do. He's like, oh, I just got this job at WPBJ, I think is what it's called, which was the New York hot AC
Huge
station.
one, yeah.
I was like, this is so crazy. My song's being taken next week. This guy has like got a job in programming.
Right.
And I was like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Well, you know what's interesting is that your biggest song is called "Catch My Disease," and then with your guru thing is the disease you said you had, and other people
Yeah.
have caught it.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
it's like that manifesting. Like you gotta like be careful about like
Yeah.
words
Song
are
title.
words are
Yeah,
powerful.
sometimes.
Yeah.
I always viewed it as, I remember hearing Paul McCartney say, if you look at the Beatles' biggest early songs, they were essentially songs from the artist to the audience, to girls,
Yeah.
saying, fall in love with me.
Right.
And songs like that, like Love Me Do,
Yeah.
Please. You know, these are songs that are about, they're actually the fantasy
Yeah.
of the teenage girl is that she's being sung to.
Yeah.
And I always viewed Catch My Disease as within that world of basically saying, I want to have a hit song.
Yeah.
That was basically fall in love with me as an
Yeah,
artist.
but disease is such a powerful word.
It is. And maybe,
and it's a
but that was
negative
the
word.
Yeah, but in a way it's also punk because it's like saying like catch my lack of satisfaction
Right.
with convention.
Yeah.
Dis-ease. Catch
Yeah.
the fact that I am not at ease.
I feel you.
You know what I mean? It's kind
Yeah.
of like, it's like catch my disruption. Mm-hmm. Anyway, didn't work. Didn't get on hot AC. And
Yeah.
the lesson of it was that was a very weird experience. That was a bit magical.
Right.
But I think it was a reflection. It was a sort of weird cosmic reflection of my desire rather than it was a cosmic reflection of something that was going to happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you sometimes I think get signs because your desire is so strong that it's almost like the universe goes, yes, you are focused on this shiny object. Look at it. Look at the shiny object.
It got you a Dell commercial.
It got me some good syncs. That's true.
Yeah, I like the Stoics. Like, have you ever deal with any of them, like Marcus Aurelius?
Yeah,
or any
I love
of that.
that.
I love that stuff. Like,
Bob Dylan got me into that stuff.
Who did?
Bob Dylan, because he talked about that stuff.
Did he?
Meditations, the Marcus Aurelius.
Meditations.
He said that was his favorite book, so that's why I bought it.
Oh, okay, that's an amazing one.
Yeah.
I got the audio of that.
Yeah.
That stuff is just like, because they're like, you're trying to manifest positive things and like think about positives, but they also like have this technique where they like imagine the worst things that can happen, and like so that they won't be disappointed or they'll be ready for things like that.
Well, the Tibetan Buddhists are like that too. Like I remember asking a Tibetan monk, "What do you guys think about God?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "It's not our business."
Right.
He said, "What we're concerned with is the functioning of karma."
Right.
He's like, "What happens? Who made that? What's outside that? We don't know."
Yeah.
He's like, but I like that idea too. It's similar. It's kind of like going like, it's sort of not our business what the truth is.
Yeah.
Living our day-to-day best selves and being in integrity and being our own people and trying to be able to be honest and say, I really tried my best.
Yeah.
That is our business.
That's beautiful. That's a great place to end it.
Yeah, right on, man.
Ben Lee, you're the man,
did it,
dude. Wow, that was really great, man. I appreciate you.
Fun. I appreciate you.
Thank you for doing it.
Where do people follow you other than benlee.com?
Yeah, I'm like, it's ben-lee.com. I have a mailing list, but basically all my socials are Ben Lee Music. Yeah.
Okay. Support us on Patreon. Listen, subscribe. Rate.
Thanks, Ehud.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Right on.
Thanks, Ben.
Woo.
Fuck, that was cool. Hi, this is Joseph Arthur. Thanks for checking out Come to Where I'm From. Please support us on Patreon, patreon.com/come to where I'm from. We are an independent podcast, and any contributions you can make are greatly appreciated.